I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. So have a roll call, please.
Commissioner Robbins?
Here.
Commissioner Rushton?
Present.
Chairman Bunnick?
Here.
Commissioner Wessel?
Here.
Commissioner Sotos Little? Here. Commissioner Alguier? Here. Commissioner Lautner? Present. All present.
Thank you. So then we have the approval of the agenda.
I move the approval of the agenda as presented.
I'll second.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the same sign. Motion passes 7-0. So that brings us to public comment. If we have anyone here who wants public comment, please come forward. If you're out there and you want to call, the number is 231-256-8109. 231-256-8109.
Gary Zamitis, Leland Township. Good morning or good afternoon. I would tell you a little bit about myself. I was a former business owner and business owner. Companies, one company was as large, we had over 100 employees. So just my experiences in running a business, I'm acutely aware that some of you on the board never owned or ran a business in the private sector. As an owner, you are responsible for everything. Making sure things are running properly, planning ahead, etc. Not just waiting for problems to happen. Being proactive, anticipating problems, and thinking and taking measures to avoid them. Example, if an employee has too much on its plate, a potential disaster is in the making that could affect the whole organization. Watching the video of your previous meeting, I viewed the separation of knowledge of some of you. Michelle isn't here, Michelle Crocker. Her feelings have been hurt. She feels her feelings have been hurt. Not the case. The board is trying to avoid future problems. Our county is growing. With that comes new needs and possibilities of problems. Unless you become more proactive, we'll have a problem. You all work for the citizens of Leelanau County. I'd like to thank those of you who are addressing the needs of human resources and finances. As one of the citizens, I demand the following. Work together. Operate efficiently. You can write these down. Avoid potential problems by being proactive. Keep my taxes low or lower.
This is real nice.
I know how to best spend my money. Thank you.
Okay. I'll put you on the speaker here if you want to do that. Say your name, please.
Oh, you're right.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Hello, everyone, neighbors there. My name is Beth Verhey, and I'm a resident in Leelanau Township. And I wanted to call in because I saw that in a Leelanau Enterprise article that your agenda Monday and today will include addressing the American Rescue Plan funds. And I wrote you all in April, wanted to follow that up because in the same timing as seeing that this is on your agenda now, just a couple of days ago, the recent 2021 kids count reports were issued, and I'll send in to the clerk the Leelanau profile for that. Really, I want to urge the most in need households in our county are prioritized for the rescue plan funds. Just really 2 or 3 points in that regard as you further your discussions and plans to take that forward. I really think it's important to look at these funds as unique, as exceptional. They are not normal budget streams that one might kind of have the usual discussions about what's appropriate for tax revenue and sort of the usual millage kinds of discussions, but really a very special opportunity to allocate resources to our households that are most struggling here. And of course, that really even compared to the recession in 2008, 2010, and onward, the purpose of these funds is really wonderfully to support the multidimensional impacts of the pandemic. So really also looking at more of the economic circumstances, really catalyzing their household circumstances so that their roles in the community and economy can get back settled as quickly as possible. And really that's another aspect that I wanted to speak to in terms of what I'm reading in the newspaper. And, I did go to meet with Chet Janik after writing you all. That I understand from the guidelines you do have until 2024 for the expenditures and so on. But the purpose is to reach these struggling households more urgently and more quickly. The newspapers characterized it at one point a couple months ago as a windfall. And really, I think we all know that $4 million doesn't go very far once you're spreading it around to a lot of priorities and a lot of needs. So I would just really encourage that in terms of even the process for the funds, that it be to identify the priority categories of needs of our poor households and really look at that up through the ALICE thresholds. I'm sure many of you are familiar with those biannual reports. That's the asset limited, income constrained, employed, which really underscore, especially with affordable housing crises and a number of other key issues in our county, that the notion of how much income is needed to really make it in what we historically used to consider middle class is a really shifting notion. But that really, once you hear from some frontline resources about what those categories of needs are for those households, that then the allocations of those funds be addressed to that category, those categories. And I'm sure some will note the broadband needs, and certainly that was underscored by stories of parents sitting in parking lots so kids could do school online, sitting in backseats of cars. And so yes, there are certainly broadband needs, and it's great that this could be part of the opportunity to address those needs. But I think overall, we really need to take guidance from these very recent policy reports to set those categories. And I'll follow this up with an email, and I'm happy to be called on to participate in further discussion.
Thank you. Is there any other public comment? Seeing none, we'll give it a minute see if there's anyone else who wants to call in. The number is 231-256-8109. 231-256-8109.
Ron, plumb on that. I've got 3 text messages and a couple calls, people saying they cannot watch the meeting live streaming. Can I just take a break and see Ron and see what the issue is? Because I'm just getting text messages from quite a few people here. Ron said he's watching it, he says it's broadcasted live, so.
So we don't know, but that all.
Ron said he's watching it, but I got 3 texts from people saying they can't find it.
Did we go to the agenda?
Okay, one just came in, okay, they both say it's on now.
Yeah,
Okay,
so
so,
the other ones were delayed because he started out.
okay, yeah, okay, all right,
All right,
thank you.
so we'll go back then now to the purpose of the meeting, and the first thing up on the agenda is senior services reorganization plan.
April, can you explain to me the relationship that you currently have with Share Care under the contract?
Sure. So we have a contract with Share Care. Can you hear me?
Sort of. Try that.
Okay. All right, Leelanau County Senior Services has a contract with Share Care. It's due to expire the end of 2022. We have contracted with them for care coordination services and assessment. So we contract with them with their nurse for care coordination. When we receive a request for an assessment, or if we field a phone call or request and someone is looking for additional services or trying to figure out what would be good for their themselves or maybe their parents to stay in their home, we determine whether or not that warrants a home visit or a formal assessment in the home, or if that's a over the phone assessment as well. And so we would send them out for that service to help coordinate and figure out what services are available, what would be beneficial for that person. And then we also have an ongoing, we provide in-home services for a number of seniors that qualify through income and asset level to receive like personal care, homemaking, med management, respite care, those type of services. And so we do a biannual reassessment. Usually one of those assessments is a phone call. So we're calling them up and just checking in, seeing how things are going. If there are red flags that come up in that phone call, that may warrant going out for an additional visit. But we usually see someone on a yearly basis. So that is that service.
Okay, and this is all done by the nurse?
The formal assessment is the care coordination piece, yes, that is done with the nurse that we contract with Share Care.
So she's the first one that goes out to the residents, if that is required?
Yes.
Okay, and the chief complaint, I believe, that you made is the sharing of the nurse presented what problems for you?
Typically, we would have access to that nurse, or they would be available to us or working within our office for 2 days or 2.5 days.
Okay.
And so we are seeing this year, we have seen an increase in people requesting that service. And so the timeline of being able to have access, or her being able to get out to the client, that is sometimes delayed. And there's just the ongoing, if we receive a phone call and we're troubleshooting, trying to talk through a situation, trying to determine what's going to be the best approach at that time, there's that team approach that we're not having by having someone in the office.
On Monday, there was discussion from Share Care about increasing the number of hours and placing the nurse in your department to work from there.
Mm-hmm.
I'm wondering what your objection is to that.
Well, should we let her?
Yeah, because we have a revised proposal that answers many of these questions.
Yeah.
So I think it'd be helpful if April could give her
And do we
revised
have it?
proposal. You have copies, yeah, I passed it out here.
It has a paper clip on it. So
Yeah.
it's like 5 different pages.
That's the letter from
Yeah,
Share
that's a
Care.
letter.
So maybe helpful because
Okay.
many of these questions are being
Okay.
responded. April has
Okay.
done that, so they'd be helpful. That way you can all hear the information and then ask questions.
So based on, on Monday, I presented my initial proposal and gave a presentation regarding where I was seeing gaps and how I best felt that those could be addressed within our department in hiring staff. And so I listened to your responses and your questions and have fielded questions and comments from ShareCare as well as community members since Monday. And so I'm hoping to present an edited or revised version of that proposal. After Monday's meeting, I went back to just reflecting on my time before this board, and remembering the first time I came before the board, I had been hired, and Greg Piokowski had worked with Chet to do the hiring, with a hiring committee to hire me. And he had talked to the board stating, he had recommended having someone with a bachelor's degree with a background in gerontology or social services, and that we were lucky to have someone that had a master's degree.
Okay, April, you may want to say who Greg was because
Greg,
many board
sorry.
members were not here.
That's true. I apologize. Greg Piokowski was the former director of Area Agency on Aging. And so he directed that agency for many years before Bob Sluter took over. So he was well known in the community for his work. And so he had helped Chet in recruiting and looking for hiring, replacing the position I currently have. And so I wanted to let you know that I have a bachelor's in psychology. I have a master's degree in counseling education, counseling psychology, with a master's graduate certificate in holistic health. I've been in this field, in the social services field, for 20 years. Of those 20 years, 15 of those have been in a leadership role. 17 of those have been in a nonprofit or government agency. And the past 14 of those have been specifically working with seniors. I'm passionate about seniors, and I'm passionate about working with communities to resolve concerns and address a need. And so it's been my honor and pleasure to work in this field and in this department for Leelanau County and trying to address those needs. And Melinda, I'll never forget also that first meeting you made the comment that first time about me fixing the department and getting it back on a level state and providing better services to the seniors. And I think we've gone through this, the restructuring many times with senior services, and we've addressed a lot of those, made some corrections, and I think made the department much better. And so the proposal I've been working on, I presented to you, has been 8 years in the making. I've been here 8.5 years. And some of the ideas that are in this proposal were things that I talked about in my interview, actually, what I could see a vision for the county. And over these 8 years, I've attended collaborative meetings. I've met with Area Agency on Aging. I've worked closely with other directors of aging services. I've listened to community members traveling around the county and really getting a feel for some of the challenges that many of our seniors experience throughout the county and how those maybe differentiate in different areas of the county as well. So I think we've come a long way, and our approach, my approach has always been is to be a proactive approach. How can we put things in place to be proactive and not as reactive to the crisis that are walking through the door? And also trying to advocate, a big piece of the work that we do is educating our seniors on how to advocate for themselves, to think ahead and plan ahead so that they too can be thinking from a different perspective. So I think we've had so many different ups and downs throughout these past 8 years, and we're at another place. We're at another crossroads or another point of concern that with the aging population, the concern of the shortage of caregivers, and trying to address And then recently, this past year, I mean, COVID really was a big challenge. We worked very diligently behind the scenes to ensure that seniors were continuing to receive the services they needed to stay in place. We had many home service agencies that pulled out, so it was a lot of crisis management that I don't think a lot of people are aware of. But we've been in this reactive mode for quite a while now, and there's myself and 2 other staff members, and we're constantly just reacting. And we have a list a mile long of how we want to be proactive and the programs that we want to be able to offer that are going to educate seniors to plan ahead and to be more proactive in their lives as well. And the service we provide, the number one service is the information assistance and the referrals that we can assist our senior in making sure they're getting what they need. And there's only 3 of us, and it's not working. We're barely able to keep up, so that we're just reacting to what's coming through the door and who's calling in, and we're not able to do as many. Right now we're not able to, and in the future we're going to struggle to do anything to do the magnitude or the level of proactive work we want to do with education and other programs that can guide seniors. So one of the questions that came up on Monday was regarding the population. And so I reached out to Area Agency on Aging. They have been a great resource for us in ensuring that we have the latest data in regards to population. I talked with Heidi Gustine, the director of Area Agency, and this is the latest information that she had, and this is outdated. We do not have the new census data to report as of yet. So this was compiled a couple years ago. It's a part of the data from the American Community Survey with Networks Northwest doing the population projections. So what Networks Northwest had projected on page 2, I highlighted, is that by 2022 or even this year, we have over 9,000 seniors in our county that are 60 years of age or older. And so that number is just continuing to increase. I think when I started, the percentage of population, which is different than the numbers, but the percentage was like at around 33%. And this level, we're upwards of 40. So. And, obviously we'll know better, if the projection that Networks Northwest did these years ago, if it matches up or if we're at a different number. So we're waiting for that data, but I thought you should at least have what we have as of right now. So another question that had come up was regarding our stats. And so, and the number of people we were providing service for. So we look back in 2020, we provided with direct service, that was trackable of 1,194 seniors. We have not tracked phone calls and the type of phone calls we were receiving. So that is not inclusive of that, and possibly the referrals that took place from those phone calls and connections that we had made. As of this year, we have so far served 1,358 seniors, and we're only halfway through the year. So we've seen an increase. So we started tracking calls. Yesterday was a very quiet day for us, and so we tracked that we received and had made approximately 50 calls. And the average time was between 10 and 30 minutes, depending on the conversation and what was the request or what the help was needed. And the topics that range from transportation, in-home services, housing, food, resources, social opportunities, the newsletter, scams, Project Fresh, emergency pendants, medical equipment, communication with medical providers, communication with service providers related to unmet needs. We made out over 7 referrals to different agencies, connecting a senior with services, and we had 4 assessment requests. And that didn't include the 3 home visits that were done that took in between 30 minutes and an hour, not counting the drive time. So that's what took place yesterday, and that was a slow day. So I think the staffing, it's important to understand the staffing history since prior to my being hired and going forward. So I was hired in December of 2012.
April,
Yes,
I'm sorry.
that's okay.
Hold that thought. But before you go further, you're kind of rolling from one thing to another, and I think there's some questions. And,
Sure.
okay. In this service, now, I had a call yesterday where, and this call was like, well, I know some people who have a lot of assets that are taking advantage of programs offered. I said, well, we do a litmus test now, is that correct? So are we doing it for every service you provide or just some of the services you provide?
So if somebody is requesting in-home services for us to assist in the payment of that, so that would be our personal care, respite care, med management, homemaking, and financial, like unmet need assistance, those are all income and asset tested. They are required to fill out an application on a yearly basis and provide income and asset information, which usually includes a tax return, a social security statement, and a bank statement.
Okay. Because this is what they said, well, sometimes all they're saying as well, they're just showing what they may get in social security, but they have other assets, but you're looking at tax
returns, we're looking at the tax return, we're looking at, we're asking for that social security statement, and we're asking for any bank account or investment account. So, I'm not the police. I can't go and, do strict like private investigation on all these. These are what I'm requesting. And certainly sometimes, and there is on the application, there's a spot that if they don't file taxes any longer, then they initial that they no longer do that, and they provide just that bank statement and their social security statement. If they turn in a tax return and we notice that there's an investment, a large amount, that they took out from an investment, then we're going to request the statement regarding that, so that we can look closely at that. Now, I would say, and DHHS will tell you this, and every agency I've worked with will tell you this in regards to unmet needs, that there will be 10% of people that will always will try to negate and not provide all the information. And if we can find it, great. And there have been times where we know that there's something else out there, but possibly, but they're not providing it. They're not saying anything about it, and we don't have a way of doing that. But sometimes down the road, we'll find they will provide that, and then we'll discover, oh, well, you didn't, you signed this application stating this was all true, but you didn't, it really wasn't. And so there have been times where we've had to discontinue services because they had told us that they didn't have money when really they did. So we do our best to do our due diligence and require everybody to provide the same documents.
So then you have some services that are not income-based.
Correct.
You know that?
So that would be our foot care voucher program. That would be receiving an assessment. You do not have to be income and asset tested to receive an assessment to help looking for resources and guidance in that way. We provide Medicare and Medicaid counseling. We have a specialist that works with that. We have AARP that does tax returns. We have education programs. We have our newsletter. And we have not been able to provide, and in the past, we would do some social opportunities where people can gather together, and that has not happened. We do the expo. Our emergency we provide emergency appendants. You don't have to be income and asset tested to receive that service. If you are lower income, there's a possibility you could receive a discount in purchasing that system, and we look at that as well.
Okay, I was just trying to get an idea, because you're looking at, you brought up the census and the numbers, and it looks like, decreases in all of the mid-range years that will be coming into seniors in the next few years. So if you look at only this, then it looks like you're gonna start seeing some declines maybe in the next 10 years, except for people moving into the area. And so if you look at people moving into the area, they're generally well off. They're coming up here and purchasing a home. As we said at the beginning of the meeting, it's not the young families coming out here purchasing homes in Leelanau County. So, you know,
I try not to make those, I mean, yes, we can make those generalizations, but I have also seen many of seniors who retired here and they did everything right. And then one of them develops a serious illness and they are down to no money, or they've had family members that stole all of their money. So it's hard to make a generalization that people coming into this area are well off and they will never need our assistance.
and he's talking about just looking at the numbers. And I am making a generalization because that is what we have seen and that's been a trend. Yes, there will always be those situations, unfortunately. But they do still have assets generally, I mean, unless they've lost their home, you know, but then probably not looking at services there either, because then they're probably homeless, unfortunately, or have to move into a home or family or whatever. So like even of your calls yesterday, then a lot of those are, they're just all over the board from what you said those calls were.
Yeah.
So.
And they're from people of all different varying backgrounds of economic backgrounds.
Commissioner Wessel, do you
Yeah,
have?
I want to follow up on Melinda's comment, because I think we get hung up on those programs that are just asset tested. There are about 9,500 seniors in our county, according to your data. What services are available to those 9,500 seniors?
Our greatest asset of the information and assistance, talking with people, helping to guide them through what's going to be best for them, making a plan. They're available to receive our newsletter, to receive foot care vouchers. Anybody can purchase, it's a resident can purchase a foot care voucher. They can receive emergency pendant or purchase one through our department. We offer educational programs. They could access the Medicare and Medicaid assistance counselor, AARP, the tax preparation service.
The reason I ask that is I hang out with old people because I'm old, and some of my younger commissioners don't have those contacts. But the old people I hang out with, my group, my peer group, see senior services as the place for information and referral. And a lot of them call you. And it's not because they're getting those need-based services, it's because they want to know where they can get this, or where they can get this, or where should they go here. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And I think we need to remember that it's, this is a program for our 9,500 senior citizens in Leelanau County.
We try to be that hub for everybody, to connect people with the resources they need. I forgot to mention the medical equipment loan closet that we have that is heavily used. We have equipment going in and out all the time. So the staffing history of our department in 2012 included a full-time director, a full-time administrative assistant, a full-time activities coordinator, 2 part-time secretaries, and 7 part-time homemakers. And in May of 2012, the director and administrative assistant retired. I was hired. The administrative assistant in 2013, the full-time position was reduced to a part-time, and it was termed as a finance coordinator at that point. It had a different title. We transitioned from contracting out the homemaking services and reducing the staffing for that. In June of that year, 2013, 2 part-time secretaries were combined to 1 full-time program assistant. And the activities coordinator duties were increased to include more duties in relation to what the administrative assistant had done. So in 2018, we had a vacant part-time finance coordinator position and it was hired in with a reduction of hours. And then in 2019, we restructured the office again to that and leaving that part-time finance coordinator position available. And the duties being transferred to the program assistant and the assistant director at that point. So that, I just wanted you to have an understanding of kind of where we've gone. We've gone ebbed and flowed back and forth. We had reduction, trying to, I think this department is always going to be it's going to be fluid. It's always going to be looking at the needs, and those needs are changing on frequently. And how are we going to address that? And the services that were provided in 2012 are very different than they are today. Some of those no longer are provided. Some of them, we just do it in a very different approach. So when I received Nancy's retirement notice, I went together and putting together the proposal that I presented to you on Monday with the support and assistance from Chet and the clerk's office, especially Jen, with the staffing cost estimations. It was not something that was done on the fly or in a knee-jerk reaction. We used our experience and our knowledge of what we had working in this department and working with seniors over these years. We've talked with people, we've seen the trends where we've recognized what's changed, what's different from a year ago, what's different from 2 years ago, and how can we get our hand on the pulse of what's going to be happening in the future. We're reading data, we're talking with area agency, and trying to have an understanding what's happening on a state level, what's happening on a national level, and how is that going to impact Leelanau County with its growing population. So I pulled together a proposal, I presented it to Chet, he approved of it, and then I took it to the advisory committee. The advisory committee supported it, and it was made the motion to come before you. I presented that on Monday, and between that time, when it was approved, between then and on Monday, I had several conversations with Shared Care members, board members, community members that had concerns or questions regarding that, as well as a few of you as well. So since Monday, I have been in communication with Julie Tarr regarding a revised proposal of what would work well for them, as well as what would honor both agencies or both in order to provide the services for seniors. And so the proposal you'll see is our edited version of that, what I had on Monday. So in my original proposal, I had said that, for one, the program assistant that had taken on the finance coordinator, as I talked about, had taken on the duties of the finance coordinator, as well as that program assistant continued their duties, is currently classified as a secretary with a pay grade of 2. With the extra duties that she has taken on with that finance coordinator position, I'm proposing that the program assistant and finance coordinator positions be combined and restructured at the original classification of an account clerk or administrative secretary that with a pay grade of 3 with 4 years of experience, and that's per the union contract. And so the proposed annual income is there, and then as well as what that is with benefits. The proposal for the care coordinator, that was, which would be ideally a nurse or a social worker. So I'm proposing that we terminate the contract with Share Care for care coordination services, and we hire a full-time care coordinator within the Senior Services Department. Legal counsel would create a memorandum of understanding between LCSS and Share Care so that anyone that is associated with either organization that meets the requirement of being 60 years of age or older and a resident of the county could receive those care coordination services. This would be a full-time, non-union professional position that like I said, would be a nurse or social worker ideally. And so I have the proposed income there, as well as what that would be with salary, plus salary and benefits. The third would be to add a aging well resource coordinator. This would be, again, a professional position filled by a social worker or someone with experience in the social services field. This would be a non-union professional position. And I have below the annual income and the salary plus benefits. I am proposing that I would continue to contract with Share Care for volunteer coordination services at the amount that we are currently contracted with them for the total amount of up to $51,000. And we would carry out through the end of the contract we currently have, which would be December 31st of 2022. But I would like to review that contract and amend it to make sure that it reflects any changes related to services or service delivery regarding that program. And then in my initial proposal, I had proposed having like a safety coordinator, or someone that would assist with that. And at this time, I'm willing to let that go and support the volunteer coordination contract piece fully. So
Ask my original question at this point, if she's complete. Are you finished, April?
I was just going to say that I've attached this that has the current staffing estimations. This is, Jen helped me to complete this, and looking at currently in 2021, this year, what the cost of staffing for our department is. The second box would be the proposed wages I proposed in the proposal I had made on Monday. And then on the proposal number 2 is the one I'm making today with, which would be including that we contract with ShareCare for the full volunteer coordinating services of $51,000, and that we reduce and we do not move forward with the safety coordinator position. If you look at those, and the total of those proposed wage positions, it's 37% of the current budget, and that's an estimate.
Can I ask a question on this sheet? Just on this sheet that she just did.
Right.
You know, I've got.
Mr. Rushing had to ask first. I cut her off, so I'll let her go first.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll go back to my question in regards to the nurse. Currently, she's available 2.5 days a week, working out of ShareCare's office. That was my understanding of the way the contract is written today. Is that correct?
She splits her time as being physically in the office with ShareCare and physically in our office, but yes, she is employed by ShareCare.
Okay. And I believe yesterday, ShareCare made an offer to allow that nurse to work from your office with increased hours. Is that not correct?
That is correct. And I think if we did the cost analysis of that, that would end up being, I don't know what the cost analysis would be and what that would look like. But also, I think it's very difficult for a person to have 2 bosses working in one primarily building and having 2 bosses.
Well, we're going to be doing that exact same thing. It appears under the MOU.
We're at the beginning.
With a care coordinator. So what I'm trying to find out is what the advantages are for your department in Harris County. We're paying a base wage, however, we're not paying benefits if that position were to stay where it is today. So I'm just wondering what the downside is for you. And I think I heard the comment from ShareCare. They're seniors. Doesn't matter if it's for ShareCare or for senior services, they're all seniors, and their needs will be met whether she works under one umbrella or another umbrella. And what I'm looking at is that shared cost. May not be the payroll, but it would be the benefits, which would provide a savings to us. And my other concern was, again, I will go back to, you had talked about your current secretary performing the financial overview. And if that particular piece was removed from your department in the future, does that mean we let that person go? Because that person is going to have that responsibility or that title?
I guess I'm not following. If we don't have, if that, I don't know what you would pull away.
That function is not inside your department, but outside your department, do we pull that person out of your, pull that person from your department? You don't need that person anymore to do that job. And this is what I'm trying to stay away from.
It was an account, okay, so it's an account clerk position, but it's really not an accounting like position in the traditional sense of maybe what the clerk's office is doing. This is facilitating the unmet needs program.
You currently have historically a finance coordinator.
Yes, and that person did the unmet, that was the title given, but the job was working with the unmet needs program.
Okay, so she's really not an account clerk.
No, but it was in relation to how the non-union, Jen, can you speak to that, please?
It's the title for the union position is what you're saying.
Yes,
And is finance coordinator a union position?
no, it was non-union.
Okay, thank you. That's what I needed to know.
Okay.
And this is what I'm saying. I believe I recommended yesterday that utilizing the services to fulfill two requirements that you had. Okay, one was the safety director, and then I'm sure your current secretary has other jobs, because that's the way I understood it. She has two hats that she wears.
She has multiple hats, yes.
Right. So what I was suggesting is, if in fact down the road that position changes or is removed or done outside your department, you still have a whole employee that will be able to do other duties within your department. I would like to see that, as I mentioned yesterday, pulled out and a financial coordinator put in that half-time position. And as that need grows, we can look at that to increase the hours. If we don't need that person in that department, then that can be eliminated in the future. That's kind of how I look at that. Yeah. And
I guess, I'm sorry, I'm not really following and how, I have a person that is a full-time person that is doing the role of the unmet needs program.
she's still.
And then she's also doing the program assistant, so she has multiple duties here that are needed, that we need her to do.
Correct.
So I took two positions and I combined it, basically one person is doing two positions.
Correct.
So I'm not sure if you're trying to pull out a position or
What I'm
reduce
saying-
that position.
You had asked for a safety.
In my initial proposal,
Director.
yes, and I have reduced that for this proposal that I am not including that.
The way I see it is you can have that safety coordinator using the same person that's currently in your office, who's wearing multiple hats, set up a half-time person to take care of the financial obligation. So your full-time person is just gonna take on a different role once again. Hire a half-time financial person and hire the, I'm not sure which one you need, the coordinator, or what language do you use here? The aging well resource coordinator as another full-time, and utilize a nurse through shared care. And that would give you the whole picture, would it not? It would give you everything you're asking for.
Okay, let's put names to it, because I think it is.
Yeah,
Amanda Krantz is working full-time
Yeah.
as the secretary level 2. She helps with the finances, she does the equipment and many other duties.
yes,
What April's proposing is that she continued in that role, just be put at the level 3 position. In simple terms, I'm making it very simple.
Well,
So
if
she's
I
working
may
full-time.
intervene, because I think this was my conversation.
Yeah, that's why I think the confusion is though coming in.
Yeah.
That's why I don't think you're understanding. That's your proposal, is to take Amanda with her current duties, add more to those duties, not add any personnel, and just put her at the level 3 position.
correct,
Very simple terms.
underneath a different, underneath
Yeah.
a different label.
Right.
And what I'm saying is, she currently is the secretary, her job is secretary, correct?
That's what she is currently,
She's currently.
that's what she's classified as. That's not
Because you
what
don't
she,
have a finance person in that department. She has taken on that hat. She may or may not be the best person in that position. I don't know. What I'm saying, yesterday you asked us for a safety coordinator.
correct.
So I am saying her secretary position and the safety coordinator position could be combined to give her a full-time. Keep that finance aspect out of it and re-engage your finance director or your finance coordinator to take care of the financial aspect that your department requires. Looking at the nurse, I don't understand why they don't still engage shared care, where we are paying for part of the service and they are paying for part of the service. We're paying the wage, they're paying the benefit. You get a nurse. And then you can go out there and hire your aging well resource coordinator. So that gives you 1.5 additional employees in your department, and you still have the advantage of having a nurse. That makes more sense to me financially. And then as we move along and your needs grow, then we can at that time increase your staff or pull that staff in as it's needed. Does that make sense? It may not be what you want, but does that make sense?
I think I would like to, I think it makes sense, but the financially, I think it is more, I don't.
So, okay.
No.
That's your opinion. I accept that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Commissioner Alvar.
Well, I had a quick question. The 2021 staffing costs, you had a half a position vacant.
Correct.
So does that reflect the vacant position?
No,
So
this does not reflect the vacant position. This is just currently what we are paying right now.
I know, but if you had that vacant position filled,
What would be the
the
added
numbers
cost?
would have been higher, right?
Correct,
So it's artificially low.
correct.
Someone's making a motion.
So we're not really increasing. You're just changing the staffing so it works better. You have a more contiguous unit
Correct.
and a better team. So you're not, it looks like you're increasing costs, you're not. I understand why it makes sense to have a nurse and a social worker in the same office. Because social service, your senior services will function best as a team if you have the team intact. So I fully support that.
Commissioner Slosky.
I didn't know if Tyler had his hands up first. and then I'll-
Well, he had already talked once, so we-
Okay,
so we-
thank you. I want to get close to the mic. Originally, going back a couple of years, you had a nurse. Am I correct? Who did medication management? And we had to cut, the program was cut, reduced.
No, originally I've never had a nurse. We've contracted a nurse and we continue.
Contracted.
Yes, yes.
You had access, that's what I thought.
But it was for medication management. That was strictly, yes.
Yes.
And we continue to do that.
And as I understand, what Commissioner Algar just said, the nurse does so much more, particularly in your program, where you are dealing with a multitude of issues, where she can input and coordinate back. And as you said, having years of experience in this field and in social fields, you understand the importance of integration of a team
Correct.
and the ultimate dollar savings of that integration of a team and the unmet needs. The person who's handling that financial aspect, it's not just unmet needs. It's integration into other aspects of the program, so it's not something you can pull out and put in the clerk's office, for instance, because there's a whole host of connections that would never be met if we did that. Am I correct in that assumption?
That is correct, yes. If
I
you looked at it
understand.
strictly from a financial situation, then you would miss out on all the other things that we recognize with somebody at a certain level, income level. We know that they would qualify for certain programs or additional assistance and from other resources.
Share Care has an excellent program, and they started out with neighbor helping neighbor. That was the concept. And a bunch of people got together and agreed to pool money to help with rides and to mow lawns and to do grocery shopping and things like this. And senior service, and they do an excellent job of that. I know I've been in that factory recently myself, when we had the nurse in to help with medical needs and daughters helping with primary needs. And Share Care, bless their soul, did some grocery shopping and that for me, which was a great help. But your program is targeting the whole senior and all of the issues around it. So it makes sense to me to have that nurse in your department paid for, working under one boss with a MOU, memorandum of understanding, that provides access so that the grant that Share Care has is satisfied.
Correct.
And indeed, all seniors that they would be having interaction with could be served through the county senior services program for those kinds of unmet needs or medication management or whatever it might be. And I understand from asking you these questions that you would be inputting any information that was needed to their volunteer coordinator.
Correct.
And I think the giving up on that one position in order to fund Share Care's volunteer position makes a whole lot of sense, because volunteering is what they do, and they do it very, very, very well. So this sounds like a win-win to me in terms of what you've put together.
Julie has sent an email as well from the executive director of Share Care saying that she would be in support of what I proposed today.
I read that.
Did she want to speak or say anything about it? Would you like to?
Can I make one clarification on my comment?
I thought she would, yeah.
I just want to make one clarification.
I have, Mr. Chair, I have raised my hand several times and Commissioner Rushton.
And my hand's been up,
Look,
and I haven't
I-
closed.
Yeah, I know all of that. I'd like to have Share Care come forward first before we go to the second round.
No, I haven't had the first round yet, so.
You have.
Actually, I didn't.
Yes, you did. You did. Commissioner Russell did and Commissioner Ruston has.
Oh, I had one question. Okay,
Yeah.
I apologize. I had
So
one question.
please, you can come forward.
So as you saw in the email that I sent to April, and I'm in support of her proposal today, we believe that all seniors should be eligible for care coordination, and that it would work better if that person was in Leelanau County Senior Services rather than splitting their time across both agencies. You know, seniors are seniors. We're all here to support seniors, and what we bring to the table in terms of a systems approach to care is the volunteers. And what we said on Monday is we still need the insight of the nurse in helping to place those volunteers appropriately, but managed under one house, I think will work better in terms of delivering the services.
Mr. West.
Thank you. It's tempting for us to sit up here and think we know better than the experts how to do your job, and I appreciate you brought forth your good proposal on Monday, but you heard some concerns about a relationship and a process, and I think you've addressed that. And I applaud you. I'm pleased that you have a proposal that works and it's within our budget and that addresses the concern about partnership with Share Care. So all I'd like to do is say thank you.
Mr. Long.
Yes, thank you. So, Julie, presently, we're contracting with you for 2.5 days for that care coordinator.
Yes, it's about 14 hours. It varies because, she bills based on how many assessments she does.
But to understand your email, you're saying, yes, it would be better to house them in Leelanau and be employed by Leelanau, but you want to, they're gonna serve seniors, so your seniors are going to be served too, correct?
Correct.
So is there going to be any compensation for that from Share Care?
Well, that would mean, as I said on Monday too, a nonprofit relies on several different resources. And if you cut our contract and then also required us to pay, that's a double cost to us.
Okay, well, that's okay. So, this is where I'm going. I think that we are much better off having, we can rewrite that contract with you or rework that contract with you. You are providing service to the seniors for that part of the programming. So we would be much better off continuing to contract with you for that position too, along with the volunteer coordinator. And that's where I'm coming from, because this is gonna go from 50,000 to 76,000. And this is, I get, April, I appreciate everything you're saying. I just really do believe your levels are too high. I think they're extremely high.
And
I get the
what levels are you referring to?
The wage.
Those are,
levels. You
the
have-
levels are they're related to a professional position on the non-union wage scale.
Yes, and so what you've got is, you've got an administrative secretary, account clerk that is going to be at a level of our assistant prosecuting attorney, who is also a professional and highly educated professional. You've got that person at the same level as our assistant 911 director. And you've got
Jen,
them.
can you speak to that, please?
I just want to let you know, that's the benefit package, it's not the salary.
So yesterday I was told that this included everything.
April's numbers include salary and benefits. The sheet you're looking at is just salary. So you're not comparing the same two things.
Correct.
That sheet was used
Yesterday when I
to.
was asking this, you said it wasn't, you said this included
This stuff.
benefit package also.
April's proposal
This-
is salary and benefits.
When you asked me on Monday, it was just wage. At the top, it's just the wage schedule for the director.
Okay.
So on April's proposals, her wage is not listed in this other than under the director with the benefits at 89.
That's what I was
So this is the
asking.
wage here, actually.
Yes, she's pulling it out, yep. Sorry if I confused you on Monday.
Thank you. Yep. Well, that, okay. So this is wages and benefits. So we don't have apples to apples even to, so where are what is the salaries then for those positions? Without benefits. We don't have benefits.
What I put in the proposal was the yearly or the hourly rate. And then I did,
Wait, back up. So I want to make sure I understand this. So you've got an aging well resource coordinator that you want to pay 72, so 73,000, which includes,
Salary benefits.
that includes salary and benefits.
Yeah, it's $25.41 per hour. Multiply that times 35 hours a week plus benefits equals $72,982.
Okay. You've got salary plus benefits.
Yeah, that's what's in April's written proposal.
So it doesn't say.
So we do have the hourly rate plus the total cost, because we thought you want to know the total compensation.
Well, that's what we're looking for, but.
And that's what has been included in Monday's proposal and this afternoon's
Okay.
proposal. as long as the documentation that has the specific breakdown
Two.
of all non-union personnel and all union personnel.
So where did I see other hourly?
Obviously, these positions are not on that chart because we don't have these positions in place on your chart. That's why we came up with the hourly rate.
So we don't have our non-union with benefits either.
Yes, it's, so on the sheet that I provided April, on the spreadsheet, the current wage proportioned as director is the 89,808.
No, I'm talking about our non-union rates.
We don't have a sheet that is
Actually,
non-union
you
with
can't
all
compare it
salary
because
benefits.
this
There is no
one
document.
doesn't have
There is no
that.
document like that.
I
No.
can do a quick calculation if you'd like to know what that annual salary is. Would you like that?
Yeah, I would love to see it, yes. I
So
think
the
that'd be
first
really-
one on your LCSS. Oh, apologies.
I guess one of mine, well, it's not my turn to talk.
Well, it's 35 a week times 25 is,
So you've got 2221 times 1820 is the annual hours worked. So that is gonna be 40,422 as the annual salary. So under the proposed annual income and benefits, 40,422 is the wage. And then health insurance and anything that's inside the contract. 61,825.
Which position are we talking about?
The very first one, number one, the program assistant,
The class
Base
we're
pay
asking,
was 44,000, is that what you said?
40,422. So the salary package is 21,403. So
That's for
that's,
the new position at
this is,
grade 3,
this is
right?
taking the grade 2, the two positions that she's combined but didn't fill and made it a grade 3.
But the wages recommended are,
At the grade 3 pay versus the current grade 2.
but that's your position start,
No,
correct?
no. The 2221.
For 2205, that was your start position, correct?
So are you, that's okay. Are you going with this sheet or the
Well,
senior?
you said you go hourly, right?
So hourly, the position per the union contract maxes out at $22.21. So per the union contract, it's $22.21 times 1820, base salary is $40,422. The care coordinator would be a new position, professional. It'd be 2707. Oops, 2707 times 1820. That salary is 49,267.
So in what year would that comes in like at, once again, like that's as high as is your hourly at 3 years? Your position?
Are you talking about my position as the chief?
Chief deputy clerk at 27, so this is as
This
high
is-
as that position.
Yes, this would be a nurse, so that would be above my position. By the time, I believe, the way Chet, this is a
This is
base.
a professional position that needs the background and
Exactly.
credentials.
Exactly, that's why I'm pushing for the contract of this position. See what I'm saying? It's-
On the, just one, if I could, if you're okay, the care coordinator that April was looking at, if I'm not mistaken, the nurse costs for 14 hours a week, correct, is $48,000?
68.89.
It's $68,000 for 14.
$68.89.
Oh, $68.
89 cents an hour.
So $68.89 an hour. So that's $964 a week times 52. So it's $50,151 for 14 hours a week.
It's not
That's what we-
52, it's not 52, so
Okay,
it's more like 44.
okay, so about, I think you said 46 or 48 originally, right? Okay, so that's when you look at if you were to up it, I believe is your question, and make it 35 hours a week. What would Share Care contract us for? would be a larger amount than the 46,000. So you would almost double that, if not more? I'm just trying to talk out loud. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I don't know, I'd have to look at the numbers.
Well, in general ballpark numbers, that's all.
Right.
You could, what would be the annual salary for the aging well resource coordinator, Jim?
Oh, the aging resource is 2707 times 1820.
2541, the next one.
Oh, the aging, I'm sorry. Okay, so 2541 times 1820. I can tell if that's going in the microphone. 46,246.
Were you through the one?
Yes, for now.
Okay. Commissioner Rush.
Yeah, I would like to make a motion to move this issue to the July executive meeting for the opportunity to get a little bit more information and be sure that we have all the information necessary to make the right decision.
Support.
Discussion?
Was there anything else you want to address that?
I did want to make a clarification on my last comment to April. If you were thinking that I was suggesting that this account position would be outside your office, that was not what I was referring to. I was referring to having that financial position in your office. So you would have direct oversight and communication directly, so.
The concern I have about that motion is that our senior services population, as we see from these numbers, is up 2,500 people from what it was 10 years ago. I think they've been working at a deficit for a long time, and she, as a professional, would like to provide better service for our seniors. She has someone leaving in 2 weeks. If we delay this to July, that means she cannot even start interviewing for almost a month. She was already down half a position. So we're looking at severely crippling our senior services department. I also want to say that as someone who has worked in management and has a long career in organizations, the people in the department doing the work always know the best workflow. And yes, it is the job of the managers to effect change when it is needed, but that change has to come from a thorough listening to the people doing the work, because they know the workflow, they know the needs, and I believe our job as commissioners is to respect the professionalism and the know-how of the people who work in our county. They know what their needs are, and I believe it's our job at this point to act in a timely way so that our senior services department can ably serve the seniors of this county that voted for this service.
Yeah, I mean, this is a committee of the whole, that this is the most efficient way to move it, to get this accomplished, is to move it to July's meeting, executive meeting, and then at our regular meeting, so we could hopefully put this into effect. So I think, I was actually gonna recommend that I was gonna look for a motion to move this to the July executive meeting. So I think this is the best way we could get this accomplished. And the only other way would be is if we want to have a special meeting, after this. But I think going to the executive meeting, I think would be the way to go. So I'm going to support this.
May I speak what April and I were hoping to happen today?
Yeah.
Because we know this is a committee of the whole meeting. And April and I met today, and I have to remind her, because we've been so swamped, that no decisions are made today. It will be passed on to the July meeting. We're hoping though that you would have a firm recommendation and guidelines to go forward, so at least April can start the process of the transition. Because if you just push it forward, which no matter what you do today, it's gonna be on the July 13th agenda anyway. But it'd be helpful, because a lot of time has been put into this. If you could give April at least some feedback, is she on the right track? Is there support to go forward? What information would you like? Because we don't want to have this whole discussion start from the beginning on July 13th. Because she is short staff and will be short of full time. She'll be down to 2 people in a 2-week period here.
Commissioner West.
Again, I thank you for coming in, and I want you to leave here knowing that I'm prepared to support this in the July meeting as presented. I think you and the administrator and Chair Care and your staff and the accounting people have done your homework, and thank you. And I hope you don't change any part of the proposal that you presented today.
Commissioner Silverstein.
Yeah, I do feel I have all the information that I need, and I think the recommendation to act on it in July is probably as soon as we can. But I support entirely the proposal you brought forward, which is a joint recommendation between Share Care and Senior Services. And I'm sure prolonging it any later than the July meeting would be a disservice to Share Care as well, because they're hanging out there trying to figure out what they need to do to support their staff too. So I thank you. I think it's an excellent proposal. Thank you for all the work that you did in answering all of our questions.
Commissioner Long.
Thank you. I want to remind us that we have a contract in place for another 1.5 years with Share Care. So I don't expect services are going to be hurt in any way. I'm confident the staff that is in the office is going to be able to manage. I won't support this contract as written, putting a care coordinator on just for ourselves when we can continue to contract with it. It's say $26,000 when you tell us that this makes up 37% of your budget in administration. So I will rework this and continue to contract for that position. Then I would be happy to support it.
Commissioner.
I have a question for you, April. Under the volunteer coordinator, it says to up to $51,000 per year. And how many hours, if we were to utilize that whole 51,000, because it sounds, well, let me let you answer. If we were to use up the $51,000, what do we get in exchange for that?
I don't have that number right off head. Do you, Julia, how many?
What do we get in exchange for that 51,000? I'm just wondering if there's an administrative fee attached to that $51,000. Because I'm not quite sure how the partnership reads. And one thing I would like to see is the contract between you and Share Care, so we can see just exactly what we're paying for. I wanna see that structure.
Well, you're paying for volunteer coordination and use of all our volunteers that, provide an asset to the community.
Are we paying anything administratively to your administrative staff? Management?
Not management, no, only the volunteer coordinator and a little bit of the office manager's time who schedules rides. When she's scheduling rides, she bills.
Okay. Thank you for that.
Commissioner.
So is there a way that we can agree that she could interview social workers for, what is it, the Aging Well coordinator? So she could at least start the interview process, because Armanda is leaving.
Nancy's.
No,
Nancy.
Yeah.
I did that once before and Armanda was like, oh, no.
We can't stop her, that's up to her, and it's gonna be dependent on July, but I think the 20th or something, if we approve it.
I mean, in theory, we could post jobs and interview, but we can't hire anyone without board approval.
Right, without board approval.
So that's what we're hoping, at least get some guidance today on what direction we want to go, because there's some preliminary work that could take place between now and July 20th, which is actually the final vote. The executive meeting is July 13th, I believe.
Yeah.
And regular would be July 20th. So based on what the majority of you feel, April and I were thinking, depending on if there's support, we could start the preliminary work. Obviously, we know we can't implement anything until July 20th, but if we have any idea what direction you're going, we really have to wait till July 20th to even start the process, which means it's going to be August, mid-August before we have anybody in place.
So what do you need from us?
We just like to know what direction you're going
We need this vote.
and informal feedback.
Comments when you support.
No matter how you vote, this is going to be on the July 13th agenda.
Correct, correct. And so that's what I'm saying. I mean, if Commissioner Rushing wanted to speak with April and April wanted to change somehow, to what Commissioner Rushing's saying, I'm fine with that. But if it stays as it is, I mean, I'll support it the way it is. I'm not, I think we need to move this forward and I think we need to get it accomplished. And I think that senior services is critical to this county at this time. And I don't want to see us go all summer with just 2 people in there. Any other comments?
I agree with you.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I can absolutely support your Aging Well Resource Coordinator. And hopefully you've got some feelers out there already. So.
Okay, so this is a vote to move this to the executive meeting. So all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the same sign. Motion passes 7-0. Hopefully that gives you,
Continue to take a break.
yeah, let's take a short break. And we'll come back.
Thank you.
Thank you. When we come back to, the administrator has, he wants to talk about the next thing.
Yeah, I have a proposal I'd like to distribute.
Before we start our discussion.
Mr. Chairman.
Everybody wanted to talk at once.
Yeah, well, we're all timers, aren't we? Blowers.
Except for Rick Wakeman.
Oh, sorry, yep, my bad. I just picked it.
Right, so then that will be on number 2. And did you want to combine 2 and 3 when you?
Well, let me just make some comments, then you can
Okay.
decide. I'll start off on a positive note. It's nice to have the chairs back in the room here, if you noticed. And you didn't have to fill out the sheets.
Could you speak into the microphone?
Yes, yes.
So I don't know what it is about that system, but I have a hard time.
Yeah, well, I know when I sit there, I know what you mean.
The seal really hurts.
Yes.
Yes, and all this other noise up here with the phone ringing and you guys talking, it's.
Well, let's start a positive note. It's nice to have the chairs back in the room, if you noticed that.
Yes.
And I think we actually have more chairs than we used to have it here. Because I think all the chairs we had, so I already took some out. I asked Jerry to take some out, because actually it's too crowded, I think. And, pardon me? Well, I'll talk about that too. And if you notice, you didn't have to fill out the health screening.
Nice to have Eric here.
It's nice to have Eric here, and no more health screening sheets. And so our staff is happy with that. There still are MIOSHA guidelines in place for employee safety. So at least for now, the shields, the one-way traffic flow and so forth, for now will be there. That may change. Also, as you know, the rules keep changing on a pretty regular basis. So we did eliminate the health screening, and we did bring the chairs back in. And technically, this is our last remote Zoom meeting option, since you're all here anyway, but that expires June 30th. And also the COVID days for employees expire June 30th. We actually have not had a COVID-related day since May something, so that's good. So I think we're beyond that. So I called Mr. Bunnick, asked him if I could give some thoughts and a proposal, and everything I'm gonna say in my proposal, I have in documentation for all of you, but I know human nature, if I pass it out now, you're gonna be looking at it. So you don't have to take notes, I have it all here. So I gave a great deal of thought of what has happened since May, and I sincerely believe that everyone is doing what's best for Leelanau County. I don't think there's any doubt about that. Has this been controversial to talk about 2 new departments? Yes. Has it caused a lot of internal dialogue and stress? Yes. I know many of you have different views and opinions. So I woke up after yesterday morning at 5 a.m. thinking, how can we go forward? And I can't remember if it was Commissioner Rushton or Commissioner Lautner that asked me Monday if we could have a proposal ready by today, because I said that Michelle and I have been talking about items, and I said no. But I thought about it, I says, I'm gonna put together a proposal. And what I'm about to share with you, I have not shared with anyone. Michelle has not seen it. Jen has not seen it. No commissioner has seen it. It's something I probably would have done. You probably would have got the same proposal in July during our budget process, because there's some things I've been looking at for the past year. Michelle has been in my office on a regular basis since last fall about adding more staff. And I kept telling her, let's wait during the budget process. There's some other issues that I think we could enhance upon. And I'm doing this with no personal bias because, as you know, I have informally stated I'll be departing sometime between now and December 22. So this group of commissioners will be responsible to filling my replacement. So I'm not doing this with my skills in place or any personal bias. I'm doing this to what I think is best for the county long term. And so I just want to let you know up front of that. So this is a proposal that I have. It addresses some of the issues, concerns that was brought up here, and some that you have not even talked about too. And I think it'd be very cost effective. So let me just go through them, then I'll be glad to answer any questions. And this is a concept proposal. I can certainly give you more details about it if there's interest. But one of the things I know Mr. Bunnick and I talked about last week, we need to have some starting point, some dialogue, some numbers to go forward. And so that's what I'm trying to accomplish this. And obviously the choice is up to the 7 of you, but let me start off with the clerk's office. I think there's no debate that they're not properly staffed to do all the work that they're doing now. It's not fair to have Michelle, Jen, or anybody work as many hours as they have. Has there been significant increased cost beyond the 35 hours? Yes. She also had 2 employees that were out on long-term medical leave. So that was a unique situation. It also was an election year, which is very unique. Normally, Michelle does 4 or 5 training sessions for her election workers. I think she had 28 or some ungodly number, including on weekends and Sundays. because with the COVID restrictions, she had to space them out. That caused a lot of extra cost. But I sincerely believe they do a great job. As you know from our auditors, we've had no financial concerns in our audit. I think they're very dedicated. All the questions are answered. I can tell you everywhere I worked, whether it's Northwestern Michigan College, the Erie School District, as a school superintendent, or here, the accounting office is always a target of criticism. If people don't get what they want, they blame the accounting office. It's been everywhere I've been, that people turn in receipts, legitimately most of the time, but if it's not part of county policies and not part of school policy or part of the college policy, people complain because someone has to tell them no, and it's usually the accounting department. I can tell you personally, every place I've worked, the director of accounting or finance, wherever you call them, is never a popular person because he or she always has to say no at certain times. So my first proposal is, and I'll go through this and you can ask questions, is that we add an administrative assistant position to the clerk's office. Like I said, Michelle has not seen this. I've had no dialogue with her about that other than what we've been talking about for the last couple of months. So on
Sorry,
purpose,
Chad, would you rephrase, what was the term you used
administrative assistant position.
for Michelle?
Yeah, and I have this in writing here. Like I said, I came up with this idea. Michelle and I talked about the last several months, but since then, she wanted to be on the board agenda a couple months ago. I asked her to hold off out of fairness to every other department head and every other elected official that has come before the board. So let's wait till the budget process to do it. So you probably would get this exact same memo in July if we would have gone through the normal process. I estimate that person's cost would be about, with benefits, $65,000 per year. In fact, all the overtime that has been paid this past year, the cost of that would probably be half of that, the net cost, because there's been significant dollars paid to people working beyond the 35 hours per week. And so if we added one more staff person, which Michelle has been asking for the last 12 months probably, the actual cost with benefits is $65,000. That's based on a union contract. That's with benefits. However, if you subtract the overtime cost, it'd be probably about half of that, about $30,000 net cost. The second issue is actually something I've been thinking about is HR, which was brought up. I am the chief personnel officer in the county, have been since I've been here. I'm proud of the fact we've had no successful grievances, no successful arbitration case. All the grievances we had actually have been from law enforcement next door. We've not had a single grievance in this building in the last 9 years. We haven't paid a penny in any cost for arbitration, settlements, or grievances. The only payment we've made is the arbitration case, which we won. We have to pay for the legal counsel and so forth. But in terms of labor issues, we've not had any. We settled all labor contracts. For those of you that are on the board here prior to that, in the past history here at the county, we've had many labor issues. That has not been the case. I think we have a great staff here. They work well. Can we be more proactive? Yeah. We simply have no one focusing on HR. We're more reactive than proactive. If you look what April says, I'll say the same thing. We're more reactive than proactive. I think we do a good job of that. Could we do more training? Can we do more seminars? Can we do more employee education on benefits, on retirement, on MERS? Yes. Are there things we could do to make people be full compliant with our policy and procedures? Yes. When I came here, many of our policies were not reviewed in 20 years. For those of you that have been here on the board long enough, in the last couple of years, we have reviewed every single policy, have it updated. Every policy you have, I think, states 2018 or beyond. Even with this controversy with the road commission, our legal counsel reviewed outside of that one policy that you passed. We're in full compliance with everything. But I think we could do more to help our employees. I think we have someone in place that has that skills already, and I'll talk about that thing. The other major issue I see that I think many of you feel, but we haven't addressed, is the Parks and Recs Commission. They're a great group of volunteers, but if you notice the last couple of years, we've had trouble with them maybe following procedures, making commitments, signing contracts, doing things that were against county policy. Then it ends up on the board and all of you have to kind of clean up the mess, it's because there is no administrative oversight in that board. It's one of the few boards, maybe the only one. They have a very significant budget, but they're all volunteers. There's no one helping them, guiding them through the process, which I think has been a disservice to them because they're very good people with great intentions, but county policies, county politics, county procedures can be quite complicated. And when you're a volunteer, you want to get things done. Prime example is, I think we've talked for 10 years about the grub shack. I think we talked about the barn for 20 years, maybe. So my plan is I think we can address both of those issues in one way. And I think we have a very capable person in Laurel Evans. She's very intelligent. She handles much of the day-to-day personnel issues in our office anyway. She has been going to Parks and Recs as the secretary, but she's also been trying to keep them online, which has been a real challenge for her. But I'm proposing that we enhance Laurel's position, help the administrator with the human resources part of it, have her be the administrative liaison to the Parks and Recs, enhance her salary by $10,000 a year and make it salary. However, the net cost, I'm guessing, would be $3,000 or $4,000, because if you look at how much she's made in overtime and extra pay beyond the 35 hours because of meetings, the net cost would be about $3,000 to the county to do that. I think Laura's an asset. She would continue to serve as the board liaison, would continue to have many of the same functions she has now, but enhance her position, then hire a secretary receptionist at level 2 position to take over the frontline duties. So the more mundane things. I think Laura, once again, is more reactive than proactive just because of time constraint. She's constantly, as you know, especially with the Zoom meetings and everything else, and helping people out, everything. But I think if we did that, if we enhance her duties and change her to salary, there'd be no overtime. If we enhance what she made by $10,000 a year, gave her some of the human resource responsibilities to be more proactive, made her the liaison to the Parks and Recs, our net cost would be about $3,000 per year. And I think that Parks and Recs really needs someone. I think there's a lot of things they could have been doing the last couple of years. They get so bogged down in the process and not knowing how to go to it. Some of the things like the Parks and Recs plan that they actually let slide by the year. And then some of these grants, things they were doing, they missed some deadlines there. It's just because they're all volunteers, and it's just not fair to them. So if we hired a new support staff position for that office, that support staff person would be a receptionist and would report to the administrator and Laurel, whatever title we gave her. That cost with benefits would be approximately $55,000 per year. So if you add about $4,000 to Laurel's net compensation, if you hire someone in the clerk's office, but subtract the overtime, we could do this for less than about $80,000 to $90,000 per year. Address the needs in the clerk's office, take care of some of our HR needs, be more proactive there, address the Parks and Recs situation, and recognize Laura for all of her efforts. She does have a bachelor's degree. She's very interested in minor details, as you all know. She can take a very complex problem and break it down. And like I said, I think we've been very fortunate that we have a great group of employees here. We have very few personnel issues, but I think we are to the point that we need to designate someone as the chief person for HR issues. The administrator would continue to be the chief personnel officer, as has been the case here. It may help some of the clerk's office with some questions they get. If we added one more person to the clerk's office, I think it'll take care of the overtime issues and many of the stress that they're under and the weekends. So the clerk won't have to call me from Disneyland at 10 o'clock on a Saturday morning to ask some question about some issue. And so Jen won't be sending me emails at 2 o'clock in the morning and text messages at 8 o'clock on a Sunday. So just some things. So I put this in a document. I don't have all the details because it's just a concept idea, but I think you're off the point where you need to start looking at something. more specifically. If there's some support for any or part of this, we'll be glad to give you some firm numbers, but I'm confident for less than approximately $80,000, $90,000, we could do all of this.
I appreciate you taking the time to present this to us today, but I think we really have a bigger picture that we need to look at. We've got a lot of marbles that need to be juggled at this time. And for me, as I mentioned the other day, we had talked about moving accounting out of the clerk's office and putting that under a comptroller. And a comptroller would also be able to replace you in your position. I personally, that's the direction I'm looking in. And as far as HR, I'm looking for this board to look to somebody who is neutral and new and has the certification as an HR, either a manager or upper management level in HR. So I do agree that Laurel has done a great job. I was also going to suggest that this board look at Board of Commissioners assistant, somebody that will be dedicated to the Board of Commissioners. So there's a lot of ideas that I have. So we will have to explore what the needs are for the clerk. I understand currently, Michelle, are you currently advertising for a position? I saw that. Have you had any success with that at all? Pardon me?
2 interviews scheduled. I only have 2 qualified yet.
Okay, so part of that problem is we're not finding the people that wanna work at that wage, maybe. So that's another area that we need to look at. Are we actually, are we starting our people at the right wage, or what do we need to do to entice people to come to work here? So I think it's a broader picture.
Well, I think it was you or Commissioner Lauter that asked if we can get a proposal by Wednesday. I can't remember which one of you asked it. So this is my attempt to get the dialogue started.
Yes, and I
At least
really
we have
appreciate
something.
that.
And once again, I have no personal investment in this.
I
I will be departing. So this is just an outside perspective. If we never had those discussions about restructuring in May during your budget process, you probably would have got almost the exact same memo. But at least you have some starting point. And instead of talking in general concepts or personalities, you can talk about specific things that you would like. So like I said, this is a starting point. This is not the end all of it, but I think the issue of the Parks and Recs is one that has to be addressed also, because that has been frustrating for many of you over the years, and we have never really talked about that.
So what's the actual structure of Parks and Rec? Is that an independent, much like our planning department?
By law, because we looked at this, you have different structures. I don't know the year, but at some point, I believe when they were helping us, when you were here, when they were acquiring Veronica Valley, to get a grant, they had to have a Parks and Recs commission in place.
Okay.
Is that correct, Mr. Lautner and Veronica, as I understand? So you created this Park and Recs commission, but you never had administrative liaison over that. So they're a great group of people, and I think over the years, quite a few of you have served on it, and they really mean well. But as you know, just in the past year, when you look at that building project at Old Settlers, when you look at that grant application, some other stuff, they really need some assistance. And I think you pointed out how many meetings they have constantly and what's that costing us. I think if there was some structure and leadership in place, that could be reduced also. And I think the members of the Parks and Rec really appreciate that also.
Well, I appreciate that, Chet, and I really don't think it's fair because it's kind of a fair, unfair assessment of Parks and Rec. When Parks and Rec was a committee, Parks and Rec operated as a committee, did their own minutes. When Parks and Recreation became a commission, Parks and Rec had to do their own minutes. And that went on for years until, because no one would do our minutes.
That's true.
I believe it's the only committee or commission where nobody would do our minutes. So they had to be written by one of the Parks and Rec Committee members. So in the last couple of years, Laurel has taken over, and much appreciated, she's taken over, I think since maybe the whole Zoom thing, taken over the minutes and trying to keep Parks and Rec.
Excuse me, just to back up, actually Georgia started doing that because we found out that we were not compliant with the Open Meetings Act, and the meetings minutes were not, they have to be kept in the same manner as everything else at the county. And obviously the clerk's office
It probably
didn't have the
was
staff in.
Georgia.
That's
that-
correct.
that
Because
started
I
doing
was
our
the chair of the, at that time, and I was taking the minutes, and then that's when it was brought forward, and Georgia took over.
Georgia took over that, okay.
It has to be done through the
So
county.
Laurel, the last couple of years, has tried very hard to get things posted and structured and move us along. So that's greatly appreciated. But, so she already, my point is she's already doing that.
And it takes a substantial amount of her time. As you know, there's subcommittees on every part, and every time there's a meeting, she has to leave her duties and come here and take those minutes. We cannot find people, and our pay scale is some, Commissioner Usher, we definitely have to talk to during the budget time.
I've recently found out that there is a woman who contracts, believe it or not, loves to do minutes, and contracts with different townships and does their minutes for them. She attends a meeting, she does the minutes, and I don't want to put the price out there because I just wouldn't be fair to quote the price, but it's very, very reasonable. That's another suggestion too. Parks and Rec, maybe, in fact, when we did have economic development, they paid a lady to come in and do minutes for us on economic development. Parks and Rec is the only one that always got shafted. Plain and simple.
Maybe that should be a line item in the budget.
Commissioner Sutis, did you have,
I did, thank you. Trying to remember, speaking to the mic.
sorry.
I like what you're proposing, and what I like about it is it isn't trying to solve a problem that we haven't been able to identify what the problem is here. But what it does instead is enhance it. It relieves the finance in the clerk's office without additional costs of creating a department, and adds staff where the clerk needs staff to try and ameliorate some of the excess overload there, which is a big help. I agree, Laurel is an incredibly talented person and really thinks she doesn't think just vertically, she thinks laterally. She's always coming up with creative things and is a big reader and a summary of information. So I think she would be a good choice to assist in HR and to assist Parks and Rec in a different capacity. So overall, I think it's great beginning. And from the standpoint is it looks at how can we be more efficient and more effective without growing government in a large way when it's not needed at this point in time. So I thank you for this, and I'm interested in hearing what my colleagues have to say.
Commissioner Ryan.
Thanks, Administrator Janik. It is a direction forward that I've been trying to establish for the last 6 weeks. At least we were looking at HR department. And Parks and Rec has been on my radar for probably the last 2 weeks. Wondering the way we're doing things up here, we're not time, it's not time to have department head or director, or whatever, however you want to word it. So I appreciate that. The part I'm administrative assistant, maybe you can explain a little better. Do we still have a deputy clerk?
Yeah, yes, this would add one more staff person.
So what would this administrative assistant do?
Well, that'd be up to the clerk's office. Like I said, last Monday, Michelle's been talking to me about getting another person since last year. So I put that in the job description. Do I have job description duties? No.
I guess the question I have is, why would we want to get top heavy hire administrative assistant, we could just hire another.
Well, this is a starting point. At some point, I was hoping you could ask, not today, because
Yeah,
obviously Michelle has not seen this memo. That's the truth.
but I think, correct me if I'm wrong, what you got the price here, 65,000 for assistant, is that, what's that equivalent to for the deputy clerk? Is that close or?
That's below the deputy clerk,
Okay.
because that's what benefits, that's six.
But it's also above the regular clerks.
It's the level
4
4.
Teamsters.
Yeah, it'd be a union position at the same level as the other people in office,
Okay.
with the exception of the chief deputy clerk, which is not part of the union. I found the union
I'm all
contract.
for helping out the clerk's office. If she needs more help, I'd say we look into it, but I'm also gonna stand on what I've been presenting here. It's also time that we look at the future and we get a finance director.
Well, I would say that's up to the 7 of you to decide that,
Right.
yeah. Also,
I'm just sharing.
Yeah.
I think I'm happy with what you
yeah,
presented.
well, it's a start, also what Commissioner Rushton talks, and it's for the agenda, but if you talk about my replacement, you can put specific requirements in there. If you want an administrator with HR background, that's not uncommon. I know quite a few of my peers have that. When you list those duties and responsibilities, you could include that in it. You know, it's up, so I'm telling you now, I don't have a firm date, but I've been pretty open that I hope to leave by December of 2022. So when you go forward, when you look at this thing, when you look at replacing the administrator position, now is the time to have that dialogue. Because if you post a job, you may want to have that person be HR and have the HR certificate as part of the requirements for people to apply. So you have a lot of flexibility now, but now's the time to have this dialogue. And I will give you plenty of notice. That's why I'm bringing it up now. I may be here up to 18 more months, but I want to, when you start thinking about these long-term major decisions, please do it without my skills or personality involved. Do it what's best for the county, because the next person coming in may have completely different skills. My background is completely different than the previous administrators were. You know, so don't do it based on what you perceive as my strengths or weaknesses. Do it. Come up with a plan that's best long-term for the county.
Mr. Lund.
Well, thank you for, sorry you lost some sleep.
No, that's,
But
my
thank
wife's
you
gone into the animals, so I have a lot of free
for-
time to think about things.
I do appreciate you coming up with this proposal, but unfortunately, I really don't think it's the direction that we've been talking about trying to go, because I don't know that it's going to help with some of the more complex problems. It's true, you can look at overtime and say, well, it was caused by this and this, and it did happen, so it would be a wash, but yet, some of those things aren't going to go away. You're still gonna have those complicated matters when it comes to that busy office. So that's just, it's not gonna, those dollars are going to be there in the future regardless. I really do appreciate what Laurel does for us, and I think she's very, very good at what she does. But I think that Commissioner Rushton is right, that it should be someone with, that is certified HR, or at the very least 10 or 15 years experience, whatever we usually say when it comes to experience, so that they have that HR. So I was just gonna throw a motion out there that we move these two proposed positions to budget process.
I'll support that.
Commissioner Wesson.
You know, I'm sitting down here, and I wanted to come early today, and I wanted to sit where Commissioner Rushton does.
You can sit
Because
here now.
by the time the conversation gets to me, there are motions on the floor. I want to speak to this informal conversation that we've been having before we make motions, if I may. I appreciate the proposal, and I too am sorry that you got up at 5 to do this, but you get up early every morning.
I do. I like it,
I was
actually.
gonna
But
say
I cannot, what we really ought to apologize is that here we go on this conversation, and now you've had a chance to speak, the clerk still hasn't had a chance to speak. Melinda Lautner tells me that this doesn't address the problems we've trying to solve. We haven't talked about the problems. I don't have any idea what the problems are. So this is we want a comptroller, we really want a comptroller? When, I'm not even sure everybody at this table knows what a comptroller does.
Finances.
But you don't have to be a comptroller to do finance. I wrote to the chairman earlier today and said I was going to try again to get this off the agenda, and then I thought better of it, and I thought we got to have this conversation. We don't do major reorganizational discussions without identifying what we want to accomplish, without identifying the problems, without advice and input from the elected official and the administrator. And just because a couple of people think they know the problems, I don't want to have this back on the agenda until we're willing to start and say, here's what we want to address. Here's what we're trying to solve. We can afford an $80,000 or whatever it's going to be improved process, and that's fine. I don't mind doing that. I sure don't like spending $250,000 doing it without even knowing why we're doing it. I don't know why we want to make the organization bigger. Why don't we make it more efficient? I don't know why we want to reorganize just because somebody thinks we ought to reorganize. So I am totally confused. I am totally confused, and I'm also feeling like a couple of people are driving this process and it's unfair. And I think it's extremely unfair. And to bring fairness into it, we need to make sure that all of us get to speak. We need to make sure that all of us have the same information. We need to make sure that the elected official and the administrator are not left out of that. And we gotta start acting like we're a board of commissioners and not a middle school debate team. Thank you.
Any other comments? Commissioner Allen?
I have a question. We're talking about having our next, Chad, I even hate to say those words. We don't want a next administrator. Anyway, have HR skills. But Deb, you also said, it sounded like you were saying you wanted the next administrator to be a comptroller. So let me just say, I Googled. Somebody said, we don't know what I just Googled it a few minutes ago. What is a comptroller? So just so we all know, a comptroller oversees the accounting and financial reporting procedures of an organization. The comptroller is senior to comptrollers and reports to the chief financial officer, the president, or the CEO. So a comptroller is under an administrator. I sure hope you're not talking about having a comptroller do our administration, because any administrator we have needs to have HR skills, has to have a lot of other, an amalgam of skills and a large skill set, and a skill set of having worked with organizations, managed people and processes. And financial is one piece, so a comptroller would report to an administrator, not be our administrator. So that, I'm curious, yes.
I'm so glad you brought that up.
Well, if you Google it,
I
was like,
really
what
think
you
it's
say?
worth having a conversation. When you look at a comptroller usually comes in as a CPA, as a strong suit. Okay? Comptrollers can have 4 or 5 different
added educational pieces that come to that title, okay? One I was considering was a comptroller that had that was a CPA that had ABV qualities, meaning they can do value analysis, quantitative and qualitative type analysis, and really digging down into each one of our departments for need. Do we have, are we providing them with enough funding? Are we providing them with enough staff? Are we, what does it look like as far as reorganizing in the county, utilizing what we have? Do we need more people? Do we need less people? Are we on the right track with funding these departments? So on and so forth. That's one aspect. A comptroller may also have management skills, much like our current administrator, Mr. Janik. He has got a wide range of management skills. So that is one reason I was looking at comptroller who would be able to have a finance department, and you know, maybe somebody like Jen or, you know, whoever's in that department now, head up that department, and the same thing with HR. I don't think at this point that we would need to have a full-time HR. I'm thinking maybe a part-time HR to get started at the management level, or at a generalist HR. And you're familiar with that. You've worked with HR.
Yes.
There's different levels of HR. If we see the need that we have to upgrade that HR position to an administrative position, then we would be able to grow that position to the next level. And maybe you should read about what HR would be in charge of: legal, pensions, healthcare, so on and so forth, hiring. How much time does it take our elected or our department staff? How long does it take them? April, Michelle, I don't know what other departments right now need. They can go out there and recruit. They have their own network out there. You know, Ty, I'm sure you've worked with HR, right? So you know what they're capable of doing, and you know there's different levels. Laurel has got a great skill set, but I don't think that's the skill set that we need for that position right now. That's how I look at it. So if we're gonna look at reorganizing, okay, administrators leaving, we're looking at relieving some of the duties for the clerk. And we've already talked about this. A comptroller will be able to tell us if we've got one department doing more than another department, or, you know, is staff not going to take care of it? There's a lot of things that can tell us. I'm looking to see that analysis for the county.
Just a FYI, and I'm not saying this is right or wrong, there are several counties that administrators/comptrollers.
Correct.
So, I mean, that is.
They have management
There is
skills.
I can't tell you the number of people, but just from my conferences, some of them have titles as chief executive officers, some are administrators, some are administrators/comptroller, because I believe there's a law. I don't.
There is.
It's not a comptroller.
But there's a controller, okay.
There's a difference.
But there are some administrators that are HR certified. There are some administrators that are comptrollers or controllers, whatever you want to call them. There are some administrators that are CPAs. If you look at 83 counties, I think 7 of them have administrators, and they probably all have different job description, different duties, because the skills vary from county to county to county, what you're looking for. So what you may have looked for 9 years ago could be different now, just like school superintendents, they have all different backgrounds. I was a very non-traditional superintendent. I had no educational classroom. I was never a teacher, which is pretty rare, but they had other skills. So just like that, everyone has different skills for different times, which may be appropriate 5 years ago is not appropriate 5 years from now too. So there are counties that do have that combination, and they have all different combinations.
It's my understanding that comptroller is the title commonly used in government. That's why I was using that language. Some people call them chief financial officers and other terms. It depends if you're government or private sector. And one other notation as far as a comptroller, if we were to put in a position, Chet's current arrangement is the Board of Commissioners would require a majority vote to rescind his contract. A comptroller is a little bit different. You got to have, I believe it's 2/3 majority. And to point this out for Commissioner Allgaier is we are the CEO of the company. We're the Board of Commissioners. We're the ones that make the decisions. Chet or his position is our staff. So as a business owner, I don't think it's appropriate that I go to my employees and ask them how to run my business. I value their input. However, it's not the tail that gives the direction. It's this board as a whole. And you're right, Commissioner Wessel. We do have to have a lot of conversation about this.
And we wouldn't have to put somebody on full-time employment to get some advice on office operation efficiency. There are lots of consultants out there that do it cheaper than putting somebody on the payroll. I've heard us talk about human relations. I haven't heard of a grievance. I've heard about we need more help in finance. I don't know how you get better than the audit we just had. I take exception, we're not CEO, we're a board. The CEO is who reports to the board. I just want us to start with identifying what it is we want to accomplish before we spend a lot of time talking about how to accomplish it. Because as we all know, and we've said before, if you don't even care where you're going to end up and where you're going, it doesn't really matter how you get there. And so let's start with seeing if we can identify the reason that we're spending so much time talking about a total reorganization and keeping staff out of the loop as we talk about it. And let's identify concretely the process and the problems. Are we getting a lot of citizen complaints? If we are, they're not talking to me. Are we getting a lot of auditor complaints? If we are, they're not in the report. Are we getting a lot of grievances? They're not getting up to the board table. I don't know what it is we're trying to accomplish. And so I don't know why we spend time talking about it until we start with baseline data. Let's ask the administrator to provide us the answers to the following questions. How many staff complaints does he handle in a week, in a day? How many overtime hours do each of the offices have in each of the things? Is attendance a problem? Is staff morale a problem? Let's get the data on the table. And Deb, I don't see you around here very much.
For a reason.
Well, but so I doubt if you have your pulse on the staff. The guy that has a pulse on the staff is here.
And he's not going to be here very long.
Well, I bet he's got time to give us a report. Thank you.
Yeah, I agree, and I won't repeat, because Ty said it very well. And you've heard me say it, I don't know how many times now, that we haven't identified the problem. We are the CEO. Chet is the CEO, that's the chief executive officer who reports to a policy board, we're the policy board. and we rely on him to do the excellent job he's been doing. But there has been an illusion that there are issues, that we're not getting information we should be getting, that we're not getting analysis that we should be getting. I would ask that before we continue with this, that those items be put in writing, what they are, because there's no way to identify a problem unless a problem's, the issues are spelled out and identified, and so far they have not been. Which is why I said what I liked about what our administrator just presented is that it doesn't grow government for no reason. There has, as Ty said just now, there has not been a problem identified, and yet we're solving it as though there were. And instead, what our administrator was doing is trying to enhance and make things more efficient, recognizing that things could work a little bit better, but not at the expense of growing government when we don't need to. So I would ask that, if there are problems, put them in writing and let's deal with what those are. And then if this is a good starting point, if there's something more going on that needs to be addressed, at least we'll know what that is. And it's a simple thing. Let's start with, as Commissioner Wessel just said, baseline data. What are the issues?
I wanted to get back to the park and rec thing. I always thought Jerry was the one who should have been doing that stuff, but because he has the maintenance men who are going to the things, but it really hasn't ever been his responsibility.
Yeah, I can, and if Jerry's here, I say the same thing. Jerry's a good, hard worker, typical. He does not have the administrative skills. And if he was here, he'd tell you the same thing.
Yeah, okay, so that's why it's not him doing it, but even though it's his men who are, and I'll call them his men.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Who are.
And they do a great job,
Yeah.
and they have passion for it, but Jerry has certain skills. They're more in the technical part of it. They're not the administrative skills.
Okay.
And
So
if he was in all these meetings here, I mean, every park has their own subcommittee. On top of that, he spent a very significant amount of his time sitting here in these meetings, which Laurel's doing right now, unfortunately.
Right, and that, is there a way, do we need to change it from a commission back to a committee and have less meetings?
Well, as you know, we looked at that several years ago. I think Commissioner Russian actually brought that up. We did an analysis, but there's several grants that at that time they were applying for that said we had to be a commission. And I believe that's why it was formed originally. And I believe when they were applying for those grants through the state 2 or 3 years ago, they had to have a commission to be formed. So can you go back to a strictly committee? Yes. However, there's some consequences of that. Now, if you're gonna strictly focus on the 3 parks and not try to expand, it depends what the goal is. Can you go back to committee? Yeah, but if you're gonna try to expand and get grants and some other things, that's where the challenge comes in. And the challenge was we were not in compliance with the Open Meetings Act. Good people, but they were having meetings without being posted. They're having meetings at people's houses. We had certain board members saying, well, we'll just meet at my house at 3 o'clock and I'll take the minutes. You can't do that under Michigan law.
Right. Commissioner Locker.
I'm just gonna ask that we move this along because I think we're just really just beating a dead horse. There's a lot being thrown out there, calling people's concerns illusions when there's no fact, there's illusion. Do we feel like we can come and talk to anyone about this issue in this building? I feel like I should not, and I have not. And I just won't. My position is based on where I want to see this county go in the future. My timing right now in supporting this is several things. Mostly, the time right now is right to do this. with, as Chet just said, as he's leaving, I feel like we should do this at this time. It does not have to cost us $250,000 to do this, and my guess is we're not gonna be a whole lot different money-wise from what Chet came up with, if we can do it, correctly. We've talked about a couple other things. One, a lot of talk about a comptroller. I know that's the first I heard of that was it Monday? I don't think I can support a controller, but I don't know. I'm willing to listen to that when that time comes, but fortunately, we have a lot of time to look at that. So, and that's a totally separate issue. But, our question is can we be better? I said that Monday. Saw it on a bumper sticker in the parking lot. Can we be better? And should we proactively look at this county? That's where I am. Can we be better? Can we be better for our constituents? Can we be better for our employees? Can we be better for every department? Can we be better for future employees, department heads, and elected officials? And I think we can. So that's why I've got my motion on the floor, and I wonder if we can call the question.
Yeah, I would say this is actually to move this forward then to the budget process, correct? So that's what, I just think we call for a roll call vote. So I have a sense we need that.
So this is to move the discussion
Yes, to the budget process.
to the budget process.
Right?
Right.
Okay. And it was Commissioner Lautner is what I have down for the
Yes.
motion, seconded by Rushton. Commissioner Lautner,
Yes.
Commissioner Robbins,
Yes.
Commissioner Rushton,
Yes,
Commissioner Sotis Little,
Yes.
Commissioner Wessel.
Yes.
Commissioner Elguyer,
Yes.
Commissioner Bunner,
Yes,
7-0.
thank you. So that would, we're all set then. We were going to move to the update for information technology.
Yeah. And one of the things I did notice sitting here, that's actually, I'm glad I'm sitting here, I cannot see you very well. And when you got lines, I think we can take this down here. Because if you're sitting here in the seat, I see the cars in the parking lot. It reflects back.
Well, it's the same thing here.
Yeah. So I'm gonna see what we can-
complain, but I don't see him really.
Yeah.
I mean, Commissioner Suits Little, if I'm sitting back, I can't even see Commissioner Suits.
And I see two of you.
So
That would be nice.
I will check on the MIOSHA guidelines, but I'm confident we can remove this part at least here.
and I can offer my seat to Ty Wessel at the next meeting if you would like.
That's the deal.
Perfect.
Because I have a hard time hearing you.
Don't we all? We're all that age.
I did what when you yelled?
What?
I said I do too for him yelling.
All right.
All right, and I have Ron's full cooperation to talk about this. It's no secret. He is, just like me, looking at another chapter of his life, sometimes in 2022. So we have some time here. As you know, we've started discussion maybe 4 or 5 years ago about a long-term plan. Our partnership with Safety Net, I think, has worked out very well. I think Ron will tell you our partnership, for those who don't know, the days of having one person do IT has passed us by many years ago. We tried, and Ron, there's nothing against Ron, he does a great job, but his skills are in certain areas. Other people have different skills. It has truly expanded. We brought in a partnership with Safety Net. I think it has worked extremely well. For the issues, they've been very proactive. It's worked out well. Ron is here every day. They are the backup and they deal with things behind the scenes. It's gone well. For example, Grand Traverse County has 8 full-time IT people, all with different skills. Because it's a possibility of one person has knowledge on. It keeps changing year after year after year after year. So I don't see how we can, just when Ron leaves, post a position to hire someone. It's just not gonna work. We need a long-term plan. I think we still need someone here on a full-time basis here every day. That person can, depending, could be a major role or a minor technical role. I'm still working on that. I don't want to go into details, but I can tell you I've had discussions in the last 2 weeks with some private companies and also with some public institutions about a partnership. And in my mind, and I actually did this when I was in Charlevoix, we formed a partnership with the Intermediate School District, where the technology people and the business people were actually not school employees. They were employed by the ISD. They were in the office every day. Everyone thought of them as being school employees. But if the people in the office didn't have the right skills, they had a backup team that could come and take care of it. So something needed to be done, whether it was a person that was there in the office every day, he or she could do it, or they could call one of their peers who had that expertise and could do it. I think that's kind of the vision that I'd like to see here, that we have someone in here on a daily basis that could be more of a technical person and do the more of the mundane things, but then we have a backup, and whether it's with another unit of government or with a private company that handles our high-tech needs. Because it's beyond the point of one person being here. We're very fortunate that we have Ron here. And Ron actually started here as a consultant, actually, because the county had, I guess, known that had, I believe he said Fortran skills. If you remember with Fortran, where those little cards that used to, that's how he started, because no one knew how to do that here. And it kind of evolved and so forth. And he actually was contracted here for many years. And it seemed to work, and then he became a full-time employee. And then we had a safety net. So I don't have a plan. I just want you to know Ron is seriously considering, and he's probably watching this and smiling now, so he can go to Mexico more often. And he owns a little bar restaurant someplace next door here too. That he wants to spend more time with. But we are looking at a plan, and we're gonna have more discussion. I'll give you more updates during the budget process. So I can't tell you that this is what I'm recommending, but I also want you to know that I am behind the scenes working, and Ron has been part of those discussions. And I have talked to several external units of government and also private companies about, can we form some kind of partnerships and go forward? Because we have to have coverage 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. And it can't just be one person in one office. So that's kind of just an update on that situation.
And you've already, this item number 4 was information technology director and administrative position, because you've already shared the administrative position.
Yeah.
So I was thinking, I have no idea where my colleagues are, but as, I know your wife just retired.
She retired last Monday and left me for a younger man Wednesday morning.
I know she did.
For a 19-month-old younger man, our grandson.
We've agreed to take this reorganization to the budget committee, and I'd just like to plant the seed for some discussion about, okay, so you said you want to be done by sometime in 2022, but I'd like us to consider finding somebody internal or external that we might bring on board toward the end of next year and encourage our CEO to remain with us for another year to do some mentoring on a very reduced contract. And I'm not even asking you to respond to that, and I don't know where everybody is, but I think as long as we're thinking about lots of different possibilities, if you're a problem solver, you have the community connections all over, and you've got the experience, and it scares me to think of losing the number of people we might lose in the next few years. So I would encourage us all individually or collectively to put a little bit of pressure to see if we might think longer than 2022 on a much reduced contract after 2022.
May I make a comment on that?
If he's certainly.
I am.
Yes.
I think you're talking to the wrong person.
She called me today, she said, help me, he's around too much.
I don't believe that for a minute.
I won't even comment on that. I can tell
No,
you.
you know I wouldn't if I were you.
I can tell you, when I got the call that I was offered this job, my wife wanted to know if I was gonna buy a condo in Suttons Bay. because we had a comment on Charlevoix that would split my time, and I don't know what she meant by that comment, but that's for the record, she did make that comment. I'll leave it at that.
I think you already said too much.
I probably have.
All right, any other questions on that? Thank you for that update.
I do have one question that I would like to ask. You made the statement that we need IT here 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. We need some sort of access
Yeah.
to IT.
Yeah.
And what do you feel the need is for IT in-house? What kind of a time?
Once again, I'm just thinking top of my head here, so this is not a firm plan. I'd like to have someone with the technical skills here to handle the day-to-day things, Monday through Friday, 9 to 5.
Okay, so not specific hours, but necessarily, but to,
So if Michelle presses the wrong button and starts screaming
right,
for IT, which she does on a pretty regular basis,
yeah, I
we can,
relate to that.
we don't need a director here to take care of that. We need someone with the technical skills to handle the day-to-day functions, but then have backup.
Are they gonna be working an 8-hour day? Is that?
Well, I don't,
Okay.
I just
And the
not at
reason-
that point.
The reason I ask that is because we've had this discussion historically about IT. And if I recall, I believe it was mentioned that some of these companies will put staff in-house.
Yep.
And I just wondered what that picture would look like.
Yeah, and it's all possible, yes. In my perfect world vision, we form a partnership with a company or another unit of government. They have a physical presence here of someone with the, I hate to say it, like the basic skills.
Yes.
So if a computer freezes up, something goes wrong.
Right, so
they
when we
can
push the wrong
handle it.
button, he can
Yeah.
get her
Yes,
to the next.
yeah. However, we also need someone that if a server goes down at 3 AM or if there's a cyber attack, we are ready
Yeah.
to handle that. When we talk about upgrading to a server or different software, we have expertise that can guide us.
Yeah, I
with
agree with that.
So kind of different skill levels. And it could be, and once again, this is just thought, we could actually hire someone here to be that technician type person and then have a contract with someone to oversee the big picture. So right now, we kind of have Ron as the main person and then Satan as a backup. It could be the flip-flop around where we have a company, I'm not saying it'll be Satan, but like them as the main person and have someone at a lower level technical skills here to do the day-to-day functions that need to take place. We never know when something will go bad. And a lot of problems are minor. If things freeze up, they can't find a file, they can't run the software. We don't need a high-level person with that. We need someone with the technical skills to handle those day-to-day problems. But we also need someone to look at our system long-term and plan and be proactive. So in my mind, I like to have someone that's reactive to the day-to-day issues, and then someone that's proactive, looking long-term and looking at our entire system.
Something Michelle had mentioned yesterday, she made the comment that currently we have, I believe the number was 20 employees that are eligible to retire. Not to say that they are going to.
That's probably correct, yep.
But I was hoping that you would provide that list to the commissioners and identify the areas of, where they work, which departments, what are their.
Okay, we can provide you a list of people that have fulfilled their 10-year obligations.
Correct.
I don't want to use the word retirement. So
Well, no.
I don't know what you're saying too. But
I just.
if you ask us for a list of people that are vested in our
That
MERS
are
system,
eligible to
we can,
retire.
who are vested in the MERS system,
Yes.
because they don't have to retire.
No, I
Yeah.
understand that part.
Deborah, we want to be really careful because, can you hear me?
Yeah, well, yeah.
We're providing that list of those that are.
Invested in MERS?
That are vested with their 10 years of service, or it could be 12 months, or it could be 30 months, depending on how those people can even work for us. That list is going to be possibly 40 or 50 people. That's the list that you're going to get. Because Someone may only want to be here for 10 years. Someone may have just come to us for 3 years to get that second, third, fourth retirement.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Someone may want to draw a pension at 50 at a reduced benefit if they qualify. 15 years at 55 with a reduced benefit. A 10-year, 60-year-old employee. Someone may just start here at 25, leave at 35, and they're not going to draw. And a lot of that information is contained in the MERS report, so we want to be really careful. So when you see it, it doesn't mean those people, because not everyone cares about the 32
Yeah,
years.
I'll give a prime example. Myself, the sheriff, and former Undersheriff Morgan, we had to be here 30 months to be vested.
Right.
Because we were in a different retirement system, and that there was a law passed in 1988 that the county signed on that for people who are vested in another retirement system, instead of having to be here 10 years, they have to be here 30 months.
Act 88 is a MERS to MERS, like
Yeah.
Commissioner Robbins, MERS to MERS, he was with Grand Traverse County, so we do have some of those.
So let me ask this question. Are we going to get that information at budget time?
If that's-
Yeah, we can provide that.
Yeah, just so that we have an idea of,
But we can go over those MERS charts in there because it shows you by division, how many closed groups there are, and who are open, where there is movement because of some recent actions the board has taken. Every employee now that's hired from the outside comes into our new group. It doesn't matter which of the 7 union contracts you're covered under. It's 10 years not being, there's no bells and whistles like 25, 50, 25, 55. It's 60 to draw at a 2% multiplier compared to the 2.5.
okay.
So we can go over that in MERS.
Yeah, I'd appreciate that.
And I don't repeat, but please do not talk about age or retirement when you have this
We know there's a
discussion.
law.
Yeah.
It's like
'cause-
HIPAA.
Yeah, gotta be careful there. Even like I was in Charlevoix, when we offered retirement benefits, I had to send that information to the first-year teachers because we could not discriminate or make assumption based on age of years of service. So even though we offered retirement incentives for the teacher coming in who's in their first year of teaching, we had to give him or her that entire retirement package. So we just have to be very careful. And I know you all are, but I keep reminding people we have to be careful when we start talking about retirement or options of retirement, or even assuming that people are going to retire.
So how do we ask a question of, what is the criteria to retire out of?
If you want to ask who's MERS eligible to retire or to
I'm
depart,
asking, what is it based on? What is it based on for anybody to retire tomorrow? What do they have to, some of it, Michelle,
I
just,
can tell you, if you're in this group, this is what it requires. You know, if you want to draw, if you're vested, very different question.
so do you have to be of a certain age to retire and draw MERS? What is, I've always heard of 50-25, and now I'm very confused about what that is.
Well, there are options if you have 25 years of service.
25 years of service.
And you're the age of 50, you can draw in some of the groups depending if you want a reduction in.
Okay, but we can't ask that question.
No.
We can't use,
we can't give a specific name saying this person.
No, but we can ask about the specific
okay.
fund that they're in.
We
She
can
can
base,
explain the
we can
fund.
base it on it, we just can't talk.
We
about
can get, we know what you're asking for. We can provide you that information. We just have to be careful how we present it.
We haven't done that in a while. We can go group by group and tell you exactly by date what groups have received multipliers over the years. We haven't given our retirees a multiplier in years. I can tell you what years we gave them. I can tell you what year every specific addition or change to these policies was adopted. So we can certainly do that. Maybe a great way to start off the budget process.
Well, I appreciate that.
That would be good.
Yeah.
We'll do that at budget time?
Mhm.
All right.
Okay.
Did you want to say anything, Mr. Wesson?
No,
I know that's time out. So then do we want to move on to the American Rescue Plan?
Yeah, I have some documents, so let me give it an overview first. This obviously has been a significant part of my time commitment the last couple of months,
Oh, I bet.
just because there's so much information, and a lot of it is still general. So I have 33-page document. Do you want to go page by page over it today, or should I just give it to you?
Oh, page by page?
Page by page, okay.
Got a half hour.
Okay, we'll order
Oh,
pizza
no,
here.
he's got 17 minutes.
So I have this, I'll pass this out to you. It still is not the formal approved thing. They're getting very close, but I do have this one I'll pass out too. And I think this is a good summary. I actually participate in a national seminar that was conducted by the White House on this. And I think I took a screenshot when I was at the seminar, and I think this kind of would help you in a one-page overview, because pictures are worth so much more than this. So basically, there are 5 categories for the American Recovery Act.
Can we by chance, can you take the risk on it really helps me to see while I'm hearing.
On this, I'll pass this out.
Thank you. Thank you, thank you. I promise I'll pay
But don't
attention.
start reading that.
I promise I'll pay attention. But it helps my retention.
And Michelle, could you call Matt, come in here? I told him I'd call him to get, yeah.
Oh, he's right there. Yeah.
Oh, Matt.
Watching.
Okay.
I got a 2-minute delay.
Oh, you did. And Matt promises not to take more than 2 hours with his presentation.
Thank you.
So out of fairness to Matt and all of you, I'll just kind of summarize, but I thought this one screenshot kind of gives a good overview. So there's 5 categories that are being targeted by the American Recovery Act. And this is this one-page sheet. It's public health, economic hardship, essential workers, public sector revenues, water, sewer, and broadband infrastructure. So these are the categories that everything we do with the funds have to be fit into one of those 5 categories. And so obviously it's very complex. I think I mentioned we did get half of the 4.2 in. We have it in the county. We have to commit the money by December of 2024. We don't have to spend it all through until December of 2026. So you could make a motion on December 31st, 2024 to allocate X dollars for a project and have 25, 26. However, we do have to fill out reports. The first one, I believe, is due the end of August of this year on how we're spending the funds. So there's some requirements that are all part of this. But at this point, what I think would be fair, and I am getting overwhelmed with calls, with people suggesting how we spend the money, as you can imagine. I got a call from a very nice gentleman this morning with an idea about summer baseball leagues in Leelanau County. And he wanted to apply. I'll pass this out because it's a memo to the board. The sheriff already has put 2 requests in. One is written here for $490,000 for a boat. And verbally, he wants to talk about essential workers and compensation for his staff also. I asked him to hold off until we have a plan in place on that. But I do have a memo from the sheriff dated yesterday officially asking for $490,000 for the boat. So I'll pass this out, but this is what I'm recommending. And this is not my sole idea, because like I said, I've been in a lot of meetings about this. What a lot of units of government are doing is setting up a public hearing date and a date where anyone in the county, whether it's a nonprofit, whether it's a unit of government, whether it's an individual, has ability to submit a proposal to the county. And if we do that, and I just make this up, we have a deadline date of end of August. Anyone, we can put some ads in the paper. We'll have a public hearing on August 15th. By that time, people have to submit all the proposals in by August something. They need to meet one of these 5 categories. They don't have to have the full detailed plan, but at least a summary of what they're proposing, approximately how many dollars, and how it fits into one of these 5 categories. You got a call today from a lady. She came and spent significant time with me a couple of weeks ago. I've had numerous nonprofits calling me. I've had units of government calling me. I had individuals calling me, all with ideas how they can help us spend this money. And so that's gonna continue, but I think to do it fair, I think it'd be appropriate to pick a deadline date, advertise, give everyone in the county a chance to submit a proposal based on these 5 categories. And the people I've been telling them, I said, call me back after this meeting. But I think if we do that, we at least, and I tell them, we don't need a 40-page report from them at this point. Tell us what the concept is, approximately how much dollars, and how it qualifies in one of these 5 categories. Then you can look at the bigger picture. You also have the right to make the decisions yourself, and you can do it both ways. For example, discussion coming up about the towers. If you want to proceed doing that now, you have that ability to do that and still go through this process, because ultimately it's up to the 7 of you to determine how the money is spent. A lot of questions about road commissions. Are they eligible, and why were they not included in the program? And the reason is Congress this week, and has for the last couple of weeks, been debating a major infrastructure bill, which road commissions were a part of it. And that's why they were left out of the American Recovery Act, with the assumption that there would be a nationwide infrastructure rule. But I've had calls from people from the road commission asking they want to put funds in for this. So there's a lot of moving parts. But I suggest we pick a day, and I'm saying, let's just say deadline date of August 15th. That gives people almost 2 months to submit a proposal. By then, the rules should be finalized, and then we could have a public hearing the end of August some point to review all the proposals and then start making decisions and some goals and objectives. Because I think it'd be really hard for the 7 of you to make decisions not knowing what the requests are out there. You know, it'd be very difficult. I think you want, just like with the Community Development Block Grant, I sent an email to every unit of government in Leelanau County, inviting them to submit requests. Some did, some did not. I met with the fire chiefs, which led to them getting a pretty substantial amount of money, but no one could come back and say they didn't have the opportunity. We were very open about the entire process. So I'm kind of using the same type of format.
I know this is a committee meeting and not a regular meeting, but can we agree by consensus to ask the administrator to develop that communication and submit a request for public input by August 15 with a open hearing, public hearing?
We can set the hearing date after at some point.
Yeah, but I would say move it like to the executive committee meeting, and if we get a 7-0 vote, that would be a good indication that we want them to do it. If you'd make that motion, that would be.
I was hoping we might do it earlier than that, because if we do that, it'll be July 21 before we.
If you want, you really don't need, if you're all in consensus, we're not spending any money and so forth other than adding a newspaper, which I can authorize. If all of you feel comfortable, us putting together a campaign, asking people to submit requests by August 15th, we can, and I don't know what day of the week that 15th is, but if you all agree with that concept, I can certainly go forward with that and begin that process. There's no allocation, there's no commitment.
Yes to it.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
It's my understanding that townships also are receiving these same rescue plan funds.
Different amounts, yes, and not all townships, but I can't tell you how many in Leelanau County, but yes, the answer is yes.
Not all townships?
There's a formula that they have to qualify in. I honestly don't know. I know across the state, not all townships have received it.
Across Michigan?
Yeah, across Michigan. I honestly don't know about Leelanau County. There's a website I actually could go in and check. I haven't done that.
And the reason I ask that is because, you know, when we start reaching out to fire departments, I believe that they should look to their own townships first to see if they, you know, can utilize those dollars, you know.
And just for the record, no fire department has contacted me. I use them as an example from the previous grant.
Okay, and as well as people are calling, are they aware that there's other funds for?
Some are, some are not.
Okay.
And I think a lot of the townships are really struggling on how they're gonna spend this money also.
Sure. But the reason I bring that forward is, let's say they make a proposal here and it fails. But then they could reach out to, their
In
local.
theory, yep.
Their local.
And you may want to consider that, once you get all these requests, then you may want to look at that. Are there other funding sources they can
Right,
apply
to
for?
refer.
But that's up to the 7 of you. But it'd be hard for us to know what those requests are unless we go through this process.
I don't have a problem with that.
Commissioner Allen.
You mentioned something has to be decided by the end of August.
No, we have to submit our first report, financial report. That's a
First
technical,
report,
that's a
and
technical.
what kind of thing has to be in that report?
If we spent any money, how it was allocated.
So if we haven't spent any money yet, then the report just.
A lot of counties probably, a lot of units of government probably will not
Okay,
spend.
so there's
but
no
that-
pressure to, okay.
We have till 2024 to determine how the money is going to be spent.
But, yeah,
But we don't have to implement the programming necessarily until 2026.
that's true. However, there are putting pressures. Don't let this money just sit in the bank. Start spending it. They want the money out there.
Right.
Yeah.
I think we know.
But are we forced to spend it all very quickly?
No.
Do we need to come up with a plan right now? And I just make this number out. You could decide in July that you're gonna spend $1 million on this project. And you're gonna wait to spend the rest of it. That's perfectly fine. It's really up to the 7 of you to determine. We don't need to submit a plan how we're gonna spend the 4.2 million. Because like the other, it's completely opposite of the last time, where we had to submit and request and then we got reimbursed. We have the money, the other half will come next year at this time. So we only have to submit reports how we spent the money to make sure it falls within compliance. So you do have that flexibility. However, they do want you to get the money out there as quickly as possible. That's the whole idea, is to have impact. I think we're gonna have a tough time being qualified under public sector revenue. We have not had any loss of tax dollars or anything. So really, I don't think that'll be a major source. I don't think any of our townships or any of our villages can claim severe financial loss due to tax revenue.
Right, but I'm not hearing any objections to this at all, so I'm saying yes, that,
So I should just proceed. I say August 15th, but I'll look at the calendar and I'll just proceed. I'll give you an update. I'll put on the agenda for July just for an update. And then at some point, when we have our budget meetings, we'll look for a hearing date end of August, 1st of September, and allow those people that have submitted proposals to come in and at least talk about the request. Everyone agree with that plan? Okay.
Right.
And that brings us to Mr. Anzorgy here. Because I know if you look at number 5, this is the one, at least in the meetings I've been in, this is by far the biggest topic of discussion, especially in northern Michigan, is broadband internet service. I think every county is at least looking at this option. There's a lot of different disagreements on the other issues, but it seems to be tremendous support, at least in northern Michigan, that this is going to be a priority for almost every county. Because just like here, many counties have gaps and so forth. So that's why I asked Matt, because even before this latest round of money, we were talking about building a tower on campus here. And we were close to potential partnership, but it wasn't in our best interest at that time with this private company. And we thought we'd be better off doing it ourselves. And so I've asked Matt to come to give us an update, and he has a memo. Did you pass it out, Matt?
I did.
Okay. And Matt, you want to just give us an update?
Yeah, hopefully this information I put before you is a good example of what we can expect from community members that want to put projects in front of us. I try not to go into too much detail. If you're familiar with me, my emails can be rather wordy, and I tried not to do that in this one. The projects I have before you encapsulate short and long-term goals. So for this, I would like to kind of focus on the towers, specifically the one that we proposed here at the Government Center. As Chet alluded to, Verizon Wireless has noticed that there is gaps in their service around this area, and they targeted this particular parcel to build a tower. Conversations didn't I guess, turn out well for them. And the Board of Commissioners agreed to pursue an RFP process to build a tower here. Our first go-around didn't yield great results. But luckily, we have this opportunity to continue with that project with this funds. It'd be a lot easier on the county to do so. Now, I have been putting feelers out there as far as, I mean, I'm sure everybody's aware that material costs have increased with COVID. So I've been trying to see how much that would affect a tower. And I haven't been able to get a good measure on what that would be. So I did try to err on the high side with these figures for you. So hopefully that's what the worst case figure will be. And we can move forward with these projects and hopefully come under budget with what we have on the paper right now. If you see on the final page, I kind of went down on what we're going to have at these tower sites, what the tower process would all entail. We do want to identify a tower that's going to be under 200 feet tall at this location, so we don't have to deal with lighting with the FAA.
Are you talking about on campus?
Yes.
The tower on campus, okay.
Yes, right. Site excavation, the foundation, grounding, fencing, make sure that there is electrical service that can be hooked up to by lessees that put equipment on the tower, and also a fiber hookup in the same capacity, natural gas for generators that are going to be there, and then an emergency generator for the county just in case we have equipment on that tower, which we would like to do. So the low end, the high end values, and then I put a buffer amount in there, and that's how I came up with that total with what we would try to expect.
So,
Go ahead, Commissioner Locke.
thank you. This is project one.
It kind of project
What are you talking
one,
about?
yes, that's what we're talking about. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's much less than we thought it might be.
Actually, the high end that we got on the RFP process the first time was 460,000. So.
Okay, I thought we were talking close to $1 million at one time.
That would be
That's before we got
for,
those numbers.
yeah, you're not wrong with the $1 million. If we were to put another, with the radio system, a state site with Motorola equipment, that would run about $1 million.
Why?
Just for their equipment, basically their equipment is a little higher end, and it's tied into the state system with all the security measures and whatnot, so that drives.
It has nothing to do with the height of the tower.
No, not with that.
So
I'm not unhappy.
You're not
No,
wrong.
it's okay. I just want to say I'm not
Right.
unhappy with that, being happy with that, but okay, thank you.
Commissioner Rushing, do you have anything else?
were you done?
No, I'm done. Thank you.
Yeah,
Okay.
I know. Go ahead.
All right, hang on. In looking at the cost, how does this benefit the county financially?
Well, financially, the tower would be ours, and any cellular or ISP companies that want to go on the tower, we would collect the monthly rent, just like we do with the other towers.
And is there a need?
Right here in our area, we do have a drop-in service for Verizon and AT&T. Specifically, if you're heading towards Sutton's Bay, you go past 9 Mead Rose. If you do have AT&T, you not only lose cellular, but data right there. So there is a significant gap in this immediate area. And what the cellular companies are transitioning to, and AT&T is providing that in this area, is that you can also get in-home broadband service from their cellular equipment. So let's just use Silt Road, for example. The equipment that's on the central tower can't get over the hill to service Silt Road, and they're too far away from other towers to gain substantial signal. So the tower right here would be able to benefit those residences and many others around the area.
And as you remember, Verizon was willing to put a tower here at their cost. It wasn't because they're generous. From a financial standpoint, they could rent the space out, and where negotiations fell apart is they were not willing to share the revenue. We asked during negotiations that we get a percentage of everything on that tower, and they said no.
Okay.
If there's
Consensus. That was an interesting and fun meeting. Vote with two big Detroit lawyers.
Yeah, they probably should have done their research a little more before they came up here, and, well, I'll leave it at that. If, well, what Matt and I, if there's consensus to continue the progress on this tower, we don't need board approval. We can start the process, get some more specific numbers, get the RFPs out, because there's no board requirements for that, and come back to you. If there's consensus that this may be one of your priorities, we'd like to start the process now.
Well, let's move along on these other projects and talk about that and go back to that if we have to.
Okay, some of the other projects are long-term.
Yeah.
Okay,
But yes.
let's hear about them.
Okay. So the Maple City Tower, this could be a short-term goal as well. The Maple City Tower was constructed originally to be a 300-foot structure. It is 195 feet, just like most of our other towers. We did obtain a passing structural analysis that would allow the Maple City Tower to be extended up to 300 feet and hold basically 5 co-locations that we identified for all of our towers. So being able to do that would be rather easy. We wouldn't have to change anything with the foundation. The guy anchor points already have sufficient space to handle the guy wires at the higher elevations. It would be a quicker process in order to get that up. The unknown is the FCC licensing. I found a lot of information on how to fill out the permits, but not how much they cost or how long the turnaround is going to be. So if that is also a project that we want to move forward with, I can start filling out the applications for the FCC permits.
But that is on private property, isn't it?
It is, and we've been in communication with the Noonans.
Okay.
They are fully in favor of extending the tower up.
And then, but then that would actually have to be lighting on it at that.
It would.
At that point.
Correct.
And then any revenue gets shared with them?
Yes, as it does now.
Okay.
Yep.
That would have to be negotiated.
Okay. Commissioner
I noticed that Casson Township has also approved it. And I just want to put in a little vote here. I hope it reaches our house. We barely get 1 bar at our house. Boy, do we need some help. Would either of these help that stretch on 22 between Traverse Lake and 204?
That's quite a ways from 22. I can't say that it's going to substantially help. The higher elevation that the cellular carriers go, the further it will expand. But I don't want to say yes.
Is there anything that's going to address, I mean, I suppose it's good for mental health. I know I can't make a phone call for 10 minutes. But.
Yeah, basically what that boils down to is either a bunch of different mini sites around that area. It could be smaller towers that are fed from these larger towers. But yeah, that it's quite a distance away from M22 on Tower Road in Maple City.
Commissioner Russell.
So how does that help? How does that help in that community?
In that community, it would allow more co-locations on that tower. We would be able to get them up at higher elevations to service a larger footprint. We do have one ISP that is interested in going on the Maple City Tower, and they would be much more motivated to get on that tower at a higher elevation above what they are allowed to right now. Because right now, AT&T basically occupies the top of the tower, and Verizon is just below them. so we can move them up and give enough room for ISPs that can actually service our citizens.
So,
As you move along, would you, so I don't have to keep asking you the same question, just
Okay.
Speak to that issue on the other programs?
Yeah. Okay. So project 3 probably is going to be the most difficult. Identifying a tower that could service Glen Arbor and Cleveland Township area. We have been in communication with the Glen Arbor Township Board in order to use township property on Miller Hill to build a tower. We seem to run into a lot of conflict with the Planning Commission. And based on the community outpouring that had over a barn that was, refurbished, I can expect that we will run into a lot of opposition for another tower in that area.
okay, I'm sorry, back up. You said project 3 will be our most difficult, is that what you just said?
I see a lot of opposition for that area of the county, yes.
Okay, but then-
3 or 4?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yep, no,
Okay.
Okay, so let's
I
just talk
was sticking with towers. You're correct.
It's okay. I just.
So, yes.
Like, not
He's talking about number 4, actually.
That's what that's what I thought, but I thought he said 3, so I apologize.
I had a question about that is, I mean, would, and I don't know if this is even possible, but would the, our park over there be a place that the tower might be beneficial to put?
Miles Kimberly,
Because we do not have to go to zoning if we do it on our own
Yeah,
property.
it's so flat except for the hill.
we would have to do some propagation studies. I anticipate that we would have to go higher than 200 feet in order to service what we need to there. It may be a substantial tower at that location. Yeah, it'd be a bigger footprint, more like our central tower.
Well, again, on Old Settlers, there is a little property across the road but it's kind of on the side of the hill. I don't think it goes all the way to the top,
But question on that, the national park is not an option for?
Basically, short answer, no, it's not an option. The amount of red tape that we would have to go through with the federal government, it would be 10 to 15 years before we had movement.
Let me put it in perspective. They would not allow the removal of a beaver dam. And that was a huge, long process to even talk about potential removal of a beaver dam. That's Gwen knows all about. So to put a tower on the park would be, I think it would.
I would like to ask kind of a bizarre question. Commissioner Bunnick had mentioned the property across from the park. You made the comment that it's not high enough on the hill, okay? Is there an opportunity for the county to purchase that property? To get to the top of the hill? I don't know what the.
Are you talking about at Old Settlers?
That's what I was talking about. I didn't.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just,
I don't think so.
I would.
don't know if it's feasible.
Well, I actually know the property, the people who live there. It's been a family for years. I don't think they'll sell parcel on access to Glen Lake there right at that location. It'd be very, very expensive.
Okay.
We own a very small sliver across the road from where the Old Settlers Park is. It's a very small piece of property.
I appreciate the idea. We'll take it.
I'm just trying to think outside the box.
Yep. No, that was
School's on a
excellent.
hill, right? The school's on a hill.
It is. It kind of on the same par as Miles Kimberly Park. It might have to be a substantial tower, and that area would be serviced by the Maple City Tower at that point, so we'd have a lot of overlap and maybe some conflict in signal.
What about,
Well, is there any other questions about number 4?
well, the planning commission, is it still a possibility? Are they getting the same questions and complaints or concerns the public is about new service out there? Are they calling us and you and not the planning commission, or?
Well, I think that they are getting a lot of feedback from the citizens about their frustrations with not only cellular, but broadband coverage. And And, you know, we've actually sat down with the zoning administrators and kind of talked about that as well. It's been a slow process. I'm not going to say that it can't be changed because there has been some good dialogues along those lines. But that's our big hurdle with what number 4 would be.
And actually, this dialogue's been going on for what, 15, 20 years?
Yeah, it was long before
I found out there actually was a proposal for a tower there 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And same opposition. And that's why there is not a tower there. There was a firm proposal before Matt and I were involved to put a tower there and it got shot down.
Dick Hatton yet?
Might have been at his time or maybe a little bit before. But yeah, it's such an ideal spot.
Yeah.
It is on a township property, it's got a turnaround right there. It's got power lines that go through the parcel.
Yeah.
We can tuck it away in the woods. It's ideal, but a lot of opposition.
You know, there was a tower where I used to live that looked like a pine tree. And yes, it was obvious it wasn't a pine tree, but it was actually kind of cool. You know, they did a good job.
I actually saw those type of towers in Seattle when I was there.
Did you?
Yes, I drove by. I did a double take.
Yeah.
You can tell it's a tower, but it does look like a pine tree, yeah.
It does. It looks like a big ponderosa pine.
Doubly tall pine tree.
Big ponderosa pine, you know, we don't have those up here, so I
And-
guess I gotta go to Glen Arbor and start talking about ponderosa pines.
She could hear us. Spokesperson.
There we go.
Commissioner
Because we did offer that. Millerville. And you meet all kinds of trees, pine trees, and now today would have been very, Matt did his best.
Yeah, speaking of my.
I said, we actually offered that for Miller Hill
Mhm.
to the township, and Matt certainly did his best, but they won't live on. Not now.
Not at this point.
Go to number 3.
Yeah, so definite long-term, what we would like to do is, the solution that we have on the towers for Northport and Omena to service Leelanau Township, we'd like to put that through all of the county towers. Right now we have, I guess, I say conventional, it's basically an auxiliary 800 system, separate from the state system that works in concert with it. We have it for the fire and EMS personnel right now. We would like to build it out for law enforcement. And what that will do would be, it would provide us a very robust communication system that we would not be reliant on the state all the time. Because right now we're fed off of a spur of the system out in Fife Lake. And if anything happened on 2 towers before it gets to Leelanau County, we are in the dark. So having this supplementary system would allow us to continue to communicate with one another in the event that we're responding to emergencies and or a disaster at that moment, which is very likely if there is a system outage like that.
Commissioner.
My question in regards to the statement about the 2 towers, if something were to happen to the 2 towers, I understand that if our system goes down here, we typically go to Grand Traverse County as a backup. Are those the same 2 towers that would affect Grand Traverse County?
Yes.
So both systems would be down.
Right. So Grand Traverse and even Benzie County.
If that should happen today, how are we going to handle that as our emergency director?
Yeah, right now we do have the VHF system for backup. So we
What is
have
it?
our VHF, our old
Okay.
radio system, that is our backup. There are other talk, and it all depends on what kind of outage it is. If it's statewide, none of the towers are going to work. But if it's regionalized, some of the towers may be able to communicate within like the county. So we have 3 towers that are on the state system. They may actually communicate with one another depending on the outage, or they can just communicate with itself. So it all depends on what kind of outage we have and how we attack it. A lot of the tactical talk groups would be utilized in that situation, but the VHF would be the easiest.
To follow up, CB radios, would they also be out, or is that different?
That would be a different frequency. CB typically is a UHF or VHF signal.
And do we have any of that in-house?
We don't have any UHF or anything like that. We would be relying on the VHF system.
Is that something we need to look at as a backup?
I think that this conventional system would do a superior job than what the
I don't
CB radio
disagree
would
with
do.
that, but I'm just saying,
Yeah.
what if you can't get anything out?
Well, that,
I know CB radio is, pretty ancient, but if you didn't have power and you needed power, it would be a tool
it's true.
that we could use. So I'd like you to think about that.
We do have an amateur radio presence in Leelanau County.
Okay.
They are not as formalized as some of the other counties, but we are in contact with a lot of them. And actually, this weekend, they have what they call a field day. It's going to be out at Kiesel Farms over on Fort Road. And they're going to be kind of doing global communications. So that's where they test all their systems.
So what you're telling me is you do have a resource
Yes,
in the event that we have a catastrophic event.
correct.
Thank you.
And Matt, I remember they did participate in those emergency drills.
Yes.
So they have been part of our training as long as I've been here.
Oh, great. I wasn't aware of that.
Yeah. They have a spokesperson or a presence that comes to the drills
Okay.
and gets the message out just like we do. They do get it through their system.
I'm comfortable with that then.
Commissioner Long.
That's what I was going to mention, was the Amateur Radio Club, which is, I think, misnamed because they're very serious about what they do. And they're
That is
very,
true.
very good.
That is true.
You said a tactical talk group. What was that?
Basically, with the 800 system, not to get too overly technical, but a lot of our channels, if you will, are called talk groups, and those are repeated on the towers. The tactical talk groups are not dependent on the towers to repeat they're not dependent on a tower. They go radio to radio. And there's a certain range, and it depends whether they're using 800 megahertz or 700 megahertz, how far that range would go. So communications would still be possible radio to radio, just not radio to tower.
My other question had to do with, the Grand Traverse Band, did not award us our 2% application.
Correct.
How many times did we ask for that?
We applied one time.
One time?
Yes.
Okay, will we continue to apply?
We can. I would like to get that solution in place. There is quite a officer safety issue, especially since we're cross-deputized and send our guys over there.
That's where I was going with that. That's my great concern. It surprises me they're not, even if they don't want to 2% fund it, that you've tried just talking to them about partnering on it?
We have been in communication with them. Last time that we had a good dialogue, they were going to look for grant monies to do so, and I have not heard anything back after that.
The tribe also received a very significant amount of money through the American Recovery Act. So there, I mean, I'm not sure about the reality, but that's, we said worth having a dialogue.
Yeah.
I'd like to bring us back to project one. Is, do we have, I would say, a consensus on that we move forward as part of this?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so I would say, so we can put that.
We'll go forward and we'll just give you updates as we go
How
forward.
about project two? That's a small one. And we have a consensus that they should go forward on that?
I think this is the first time we really looked at it, so I don't know that we want to decide that today.
Well, we've got the
It's very
township
possible.
behind it.
Yeah,
We can direct them to be prepared
yeah.
if we would want to consider that.
It's actually been quite a bit of discussion and
Yes, sir.
investigation into it. Now, that was a big part of the grant application, so
We have,
that's been an awful lot of work on that already.
in December maybe meeting, we talked about it.
Yeah, one of the lift focused meetings, we did discuss that a little bit.
I would say move forward with Maple City expansion too. I
Are
would
there
say
any arguments with that? I mean, anybody, so I think
That's
that was a good
110.
suggestion.
1,000.
Okay, so I just want to make sure I have that number 2 consensus to move as well.
Correct.
Thank you.
One thing that you could do at some point, it's up to, I think, Jen and Michelle decide when, but you did approve 42,000 for that study back in, I can't remember, April or May. But you use it from the general fund dollars. At some point, you could, if you wish to allocate the money from this American Recovery Act money, because it obviously is related to broadband, and pay yourself back from
It's
general fund.
related, but do we think they're going to cover a study?
Yeah.
It's part of the process. I would-
Yeah. You can't do a
We thought
pre-project.
so, and we kind of assumed so, and then.
No, I'm very confident.
Not going to cover.
No, I
studies.
can't assume
So,
that.
Okay.
Broadband is, anything related to broadband that enhances the options for the counties will be approved.
Well, let's hope so. I'm going to take that out of
So
general.
would we have a consensus to move that to the Recovery Act?
Yeah, well, at some point, we'll bring it up officially. I'll talk to Jen.
Now,
I mean, that's a technical thing to transfer the money. I'll leave it up to Jen and Michelle. But I think at some point in the near future, you may want to vote on that. And that way, when we submit our project in August, we can actually say that we spent some money.
all right.
And you get reimbursed that from general fund.
Any objections? Right. So we can have that move forward then too. Were there any other questions or anything?
Thank you, Matt.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
See if the tribe will go Dutch on that tower.
We've been having some good conversations with them, so we'll see about teaming up for that one for sure.
Well, we might have a little bit more flexibility with these other Project 3 and Project 4. Things are changing and, I say we just keep working towards it.
I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, longer term.
Yeah.
The one major project that may or may not be eligible, and there seems to be some gray areas, is whether we can use those funds to continue with the HVAC project in this building. When we get to the budget process, that's a major ticket item that we have kind of delayed. We kind of put a Band-Aid on it. It hasn't gone away. And a lot of counties are asking, can they do upgrades in the building? Well, that's infrastructure. It just depends how it plays out. So something in the back of your mind to think about, because in the budget process, I'll give you an update, what it would cost to complete this building project.
Well, it's a better filtration system, isn't it?
Well, I mean, yeah, there's a lot of counties are asking about those type of building projects. Because a lot of them have needs in the buildings. And that's kind of, seems to be a gray area. No one has a straight answer yet.
So do we have any other matters? We move to number 6 at this time. I don't see any. So that would bring us to public comment. If you're still listening and you wanted to call in, the number is 231-256-8109. 231-256-8109. While we're waiting for a phone call, do the commissioners have any comments? Commissioner Solislow?
Mine was just a clarification. Commissioner Lautner, I didn't mean, these panels made it hard to hear exactly what you're saying. I didn't mean illusion, it was alluded, meaning referred to, is what I was saying.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you for that.
Commissioner Elroy?
Just a couple of quick points. Yes, we are a policy board, but I firmly always believe that we need to make decisions after we listen to the people actually doing the work. That's very, very important. And yes, it is our ultimate decision. But we really need to listen to the people actually doing the work, countering the problems, because, and then we go from there. And just a request, my last name does not have a U. And I'm hearing more Allgwire, it's Allgeier. I would appreciate that. It's starting to grow, and I don't want it to grow any further. So thank you.
Can we just call you Commissioner Gwen? It'd be easier.
Can I call you Commissioner Dell?
Yeah, it's okay with me.
Fine by me.
Thank you for that. Any other comments? No, we are.